welcome to NXTGEN Racing, the home of clean and fair sim racing for all. Hello, welcome and good evening ladies and gentlemen to another round of rapid fire racing action in the NXTGEN Racing Touring Car Championship Season 9 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing. Powered by Doble Motorcycles, this is the championship that aims to answer the question, who is the master or mistress of the touring car racing machine? The TCR car in short, its front engine front wheel drive powered by a 2-litre 4-cylinder engine. And as our drivers do battle week in, week out, they look to try and go for the ultimate prize of being the NXTCC champion, an accolade which spans all the way back to the best part of 3 years, with the inaugural title being taken by Jamie Dory, the season organiser. And right now, well, we're on the course potentially for seeing our leading statistician in the form of Mikey Doble, a 4-time champion, potentially make it 5 titles. He can't win it today, but here at the Silverstone National Circuit, he can go a long way to give himself a 5th title almost in the bag when we do head to our season finale in a couple of weeks' time at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. But this story's up and down the grid. It's not just in our orange overall championship where we could potentially see a champion crowned over this round or indeed in the last round of the season, and there are plenty of permutations for us to work out today as we get ready to go racing. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this live broadcast from circuit side, and you're tuning in right now live from the circuit via one of 3 media platforms. Of course, you can be tuning in via one of the 2 official NXTGEN Racing media channels, one of which is on YouTube at youtube.com and search for NXTGEN Racing. And welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via YouTube, including none other there than Welsh Boy 2012. Greetings to you, good sir, and I hope you're doing well. But if you're not tuning in via YouTube, you can of course be tuning in via Facebook at the official NXTGEN Racing Facebook group. That's facebook.com/groups/NXTGEN Racing, and welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via Facebook. And last but not least, of course, we do have the unofficial broadcast available on Twitch at twitch.tv/TX141. And welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via Twitch. But regardless of what media platform you tune into tonight, indeed over the entirety of the season, you'll have the same broadcast presented to you in the commentary booth. You have myself. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And I will bring you all your racing action as it unfolds here today and over the remainder of the season. And what a remaining portion of the season we have. 2 rounds remain, and anything can happen before that final checker flag falls at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. But here at the Silverstone National Circuit, it's short, it's sweet, it's simple, and 20 laps apiece in each of our 3 races, because we take you for our schedule for tonight, times in British summertime, that's BST, or Universal Coordinate Time +1, UTC +1. We can definitely see it is going to be action-packed. In just under 17 minutes' time, we'll be making our way out of the circuit for our qualifying session. 15 minutes in duration. It's going to be a crowded circuit, while the circuit's length spanning only the best part of 1.64 miles, when you do have the best part of 37 cars in attendance currently. Well, we might have slightly diminished numbers compared to what we used to, but one thing that's not diminished is the fact it's going to be a packed circuit and everyone will be looking to go for pole position. After which we make our way into our 3 races. Race number 1, of course, due to get underway just before 8 this evening, after which we take a brief breather before returning for the build-up to race number 2 at just before 9. After that, we take another breather, but not without our all-important partial reverse grid draw, and once we do return for race number 3 at approximately 10 o'clock this evening, will we bring the curtain down on this round and making our way towards the season finale. But goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, with everything in store, let's give you a recap, because it has been the best part of 3 weeks since we last went racing, and we need to bring you back up to speed. Indeed, we need to give ourselves a refresher course as well. As we can see then, it is the 16th of September 2025 today, and last time out we were at the Donington Park Grand Prix circuit on the 26th of August, and Donington Park, well, it must definitely be said that across our 3 races there, with rather unpredictable conditions, with the wet weather absolutely dominating proceedings, and also the occasional switch to the dry and the sun coming out, well, in all of our 6 classes out there, whether it be the orange classes or the blue lobby classes, we got to see some huge shake-ups. And of course, perhaps one of the most notable ones being that in the orange overall championship, Luciano Witvoet bringing down the gap to championship leader Mikey Doble, following 2 out of 3 wins at Donington Park. Meanwhile, if we look to the blue Bram class, conversely, Mike Barber somehow, despite all the drama inflicted on both him and also his championship rival Dylan Hunter, he has still been able to maintain the lead at a relatively comfortable 17 points. You could not make up the fact for all the bad luck that Mike Barber had. Dylan Hunter had that bad luck plus a little bit more, and both will be wary of Joe Gibson, who has absolutely charged his way out through the field. And then we look look back to the AM class of the Orange, and well, there at Donington Park, we also got to see the fact the results went the way of Marcel Fritsch, and he could wrap it up today, as we'll come to the point shortly, if things continue to go his way. But after today, on the 30th of September, in 2 weeks' time, as we follow the BTCC calendar for 2025, we'll be wrapping up proceedings on the Brands Hatch Grand Prix Circuit's venerable tarmac in the county of Kent, and that's where we'll be crowning our Season 9 champions across both the Orange and Blue lobby classes. And indeed, plenty of trophies to be given out at the end of the season, ladies and gentlemen, and we definitely look forward to doing so. But as we make our way into this round then, how do the championships stand after 8 rounds of racing? We begin with the Orange Lobby Championships, and we do see here in the Orange Overall Championship, it is Mikey Doble who leads on 393 points to 362 of Luciano Witvoet. And as we mentioned only moments ago, Witvoet was the one who scored the bigger haul of points at Donington Park and has slightly reduced that gap. Now you may be sat there thinking, well, hold on a second, that gap has actually increased compared to Donington Park if you look back at the previous broadcast, where it's remained roughly the same. So why are we saying it has closed? Well, it's closed because the drop scores are now starting to play a bigger part, and Witvoet's big score last time out at Donington Park means when we go to Brands Hatch, if he backs it up with another big score today, he will be rolling into the season finale with a lot of momentum, and Mikey Doble will need to try and make sure that momentum does not build up too much, because otherwise he may suddenly find that gap is practically eradicated when we do head to our season finale. Wojciech Swierdowicz, meanwhile, having missed multiple rounds due to illness, well, he's back on the grid, of course, has been for the last couple of rounds, and he continues to prove a point, and the fact that he is a very valid two-time champion of the NXTCC on 315 points, albeit out of potential contention for the championship crown mathematically almost, but right now looking to hunt down what will be third place at the minimum, and even take a swipe at second place if he can. Isaac Doble, while the younger members of the grid, sits in fourth on 273 points. He leads the rest of the field, with Adam Delmont at 259 behind, and it's a further 54 points to Tom Davidson for the Racing Collective, who'll be the sole representative for the team today, with Andrew Pike not expected to be on the grid due to personal circumstances. I had the pleasure of catching up with him last night, but he's definitely wishing the best luck to Tom Davidson, and gutted he can't be here. Conrad Cooler, Lee Horn and William Guthrie complete your Orange overall top 10. Best of the rest on the 11th is Alex Meredith on 140 points, only 4 off the top 10 now, with further 2 points to Gavin Gardner, and Jamie Doria languishing a further 14 behind. What a challenging season it has been for Jamie Doria, our two-time NXTCC champion. The Hyundai Elantra proving to be a car that he's really struggling to drive and trying to get the most out of. Lewis Delmont sits in 14th, the leading Pro-Am driver, ahead of Ben Altria, with Kieran Smart, Reece Watt, Michael Lees, Matthew Addy and Nick Clemens completing your top 20, all of them Pro-Am drivers. And then outside the top 20 on 83 points, it's Sam Van Olst, with Benjamin Gregory a further 12 behind and 6 ahead of Stuart Wynis. And then we do have Joe Doble all the way down in 24th place, with rather a frustrating season for him, indeed hoping that things start to click together before it's too late to do so. Duncan Rice sits 26th ahead of Sam Smith, and then Siasa Sabula, Alexander Paulik and Russell Fowler complete your overall top 30. And then we do see there Matthew Jordan, the leading AM driver, who sprung some great surprises over the season. He's not the AM championship leader for Orange, but he is the AM overall leader, albeit there's no accolade for that at the end of the season. But he has had the best overall results of all of our AM drivers, but as we'll see shortly, he hasn't had the best class results, and that's why he may be ahead of Marcel Fritsch, Craig Tillotson, Jonathan Collins, Sam Bradley, Cal Murray and Mark Sykes here. But when we get to the AM class and see how their points are adjusted, it's a very different story. But before we get to the AM class, we must go to the Orange Pro-Ams, and we can see Ben Altria on 328 points leads the way ahead of Michael Lees by 25 points. Indeed, the battle between these two right now, it is anybody's guess which way is going to swing. And well, let's be a little bit fairer to the rest of the field, because we have the best part of only 38 points separating the top 4, and it really is becoming a 4-way fight for the crown at the moment, with Lewis Delmont and Matthew Addy in the mix. And watch out for both Delmont and Addy, because they have proven to be the dark horses of the Pro-Am class in the Orange split over the last couple of rounds. Ever since the midway point of the season, they have come on strong, and Altria and Lees have had to struggle against the rising tide of momentum of those two behind them. Kieran Smart for Track Scotland sits in 5th, with some bad luck hitting him at Donington Park once again. He'll be wishing for a bit more, as will Reece Watt on 269 points, 5 points behind him. Stuart Wynis sits in 7th, splitting the Track Scotland drivers behind Reece Watt, with Nick Clemens and Alan McCain for Irish Esports 8th and 9th, and then Sam Van Olst completes your top 10. A further 9 points behind him is Benjamin Gregory, best of the rest, and it's Duncan Wright, Sam Smith and Russell Fowler who complete this highly competitive Pro-Am field. As for the AM class then, well, as we shuffle the statistics around based on the AM finisher positions, it's Marcel Fritsch who leads the way by a dominant margin out of almost the best part there of what is 90 points. And on paper, if results go his way, he will be taking taking the crown today and making it another AM Championship coming to him. He'll be a two-time AM champion. Mark Sykes sits in second on 351 points, and he's had some difficult results, but he's not given up yet, and he's back on the grid today. But he's got the rising threat of Matthew Cheverton, who'll be late to the party today. Indeed, he's in a traffic jam going up the M6 at the moment towards the Silverstone Circuit, but rest assured he's going to be there when he can be. Jonathan Collins sits in fourth place on 162 points, which is the best part of 15 ahead of Sam Bradley, and then it's Craig Tillotson and Cal Murray who complete your Orange AM Championship. As for the Blues, well, we see here for the Blue split, overall it's Matthew Cheverton on 359 points, and again at Donington Park, a wounding round of racing, much like at the Silverstone International Circuit from 2008 back in round number 6. Well, the wet weather there caught him out, and at Donington Park it was the same, plus plenty of incidents, and Ben Benneyworth is closing the gap. How the momentum still lies with the Aztec Racing driver, but he'll know he can't afford to lose any more points to Benneyworth, as always he'll be looking vulnerable into Brands Hatch's Grand Prix circuit. Sam Jarvosky sits in third, the best part there of 19 points ahead of Mike Barber, with Nigel Stock in fifth place, and it's Dylan Hunter, Lewis Mason, Stephen Fry, Piotr Czegoslewski, and Joe Gibson who complete your top 10, and Joe Gibson leaping his way into the top 10 for the first time this season after that phenomenal run of performances at Donington Park. He's going to be one to watch out for here. Phil McDowell sits in 11th place, best of the rest, 141. 16 points clear of Tom Delaney, and then we do have Stanley Donaldson ahead of Wayne Douglas, with Mark Hughes there in 15th place, but unfortunately, due to a post-race incident at Donington Park, we will not be seeing Mark Hughes on the grid for the remainder of the season, as he has received a season ban for post-race contact, and well, that's been dealt with the stewards. We're not going to delve into that story there, but that's why you won't see the GDRC driver on the grid anymore for the remaining 2 rounds. Andy Aldhouse sits in 16th ahead of Sean Doby, with Carl Thompson, Andy Chill and Mark Kent completing a top 20, and then outside the top 20, we do have William Kurtler ahead of Marcelo Reles, with Matthew Williams and Stuart Johnson in 24th, with Gabriel Yilmaz 25th just behind, and Roy Plummer 11 points to his name, where he sits there in a happy 26th. Dwayne Hoffman and Jeffrey Normstrom round off those all with points to the first driver who doesn't have points, and then continuing the theme of no points is also there Andy Cow ahead of Dan Mould, with Jake Pitt and Jeremy Nordstrom completing the overall championship standings for the Blue Lobby drivers. As for the Pro-Ams in blue, it's Mike Barber versus Dylan Hunter. 17 points is the delta between the two of them, and Joe Gibson sits the best part of a further none other than 44 points behind, and it's anybody's guess right now whether Joe Gibson can potentially slice his way between them with only 2 rounds to go. If he can, it's going to definitely be an intriguing season finale, there's no question about it. Phil McDougall, meanwhile, leads the rest of the field for the Pro-Ams on 271 points, 30 ahead of Andy Aldhouse, with Carl Thompson sitting in 6th right now, looking for a better day today. Stanley Donaldson sits 7th for Quatermass Motorsport, ahead of Matthew Williams, and it's Dwayne Hoffman and Jeremy Nordstrom who complete your top 10. Outside the top 10, it's Jeffrey Nordstrom ahead of none other than Andy Cowell, with Jake Pitt and Lee Holmes yet to score any points. As for the Blue Am drivers, well, Nigel Stock right now, he could wrap things up if results swing his way today. Lewis Mason has brought that gap down somewhat, but he needs to snatch plenty more points here for Nigel Stock, because Stock has a huge tide of points from the first half of the season. Mason, however, has plenty of enthusiasm, and that's keeping him right in the hunt so far. Thomas Delaney sits in 3rd for the SVR team, ahead of Sean Doby. The A-Tip Racing driver normally proven to be very strong in wet conditions, however, dry conditions today at Silverstone may not benefit him. Mark Hughes there in 5th place, 281 points, that's the furthest he'll go for this season, ahead of Andy Chell, and there's Mark Kent, William Kurtler, Stanley Johnson, in fact Stuart Johnson I should say, and Roy Plummer who complete your top 10. Outside the top 10, it's a further 4 points to Gabriel Yilmaz, and yet to score any points, it's none other than Jordan Hogan, who sits there in 12th. But coming on to our circuit for today then, well, it is the national layout of the Silverstone Circuit. Located near the village of Silverstone in the Northamptonshire county of England, the United Kingdom, this circuit is focused on the northern heart of the modern-day Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. And the big thing to iRacing.com, not just for the simulator, but also the fantastic track mats contained within it. Only 6 corners, 2 major braking zones, and 2 extended straights. It means that this is a circuit where you can expect pack racing, and the races to only last will be the best part of a minute a lap, and therefore we are going to get a huge number of laps in here, what will be the best part of 20 laps of racing. All in all then, we can expect some absolutely brilliant battling from all of our drivers, and we can also expect some surprises out there when it comes to those battles, because pack racing means the driver at the very front of the pack on one lap may fall all the way to the back, particularly if they find themselves on the outside of Maggots Bend, for example, at turn number 3, only to be relegated all the way down the order and then have to try and fight their way through to victory. But as our drivers get ready to go racing, A quick reminder of the rules. This is a fixed setup series with setups provided to our drivers ahead of each and every race. Driver classes, they've been finalised as the conclusion of round number 3, and how we set the grid for the 3 races will be as follows. The race 1 grid is based on qualifying. For race number 2, we take the finishing positions of race number 1. For race number 3, we take the finishing positions for race number 2, and we partially invert them based on a reverse grid raffle draw done from the commentary booth, live from the commentary booth I should say, from between 13th and 23rd place. And well, you get to see that later on, and we've had a whole mixture of reverse grid positions over the course of the season. And well, last time out, it was 15th place for William Guthrie. He was the beneficiary. Will we see more of that today? Well, we'll have to wait and find out. Each driver shall have 1 fast spare available in each race, and each race shall conclude after either the allotted lap amount of 20 laps or 30 minutes, whichever expires first, and will only normally get to time if we do see multiple safety cars. Add to this as well the fact that we do have an independent race director stood in the races for track limit infringements and the deployment of the safety car, and the penalties for track limit infringements as shown on screen. They extend all the way from a warning through to a drive-through penalty on the 5th warning, and those drive-through penalties must be served within 3 laps of being awarded. Meanwhile, all racing incidents shall be reviewed post-round. Now, we are also running success ballast that continues to be applied on a race-by-race basis overall and in the respective lobby classes of Prime and Am, and we iteratively update it after each and every race, starting with qualifying in race number 1, and then we update it for race number 2 and race number 3. And while our success ballast values, they're shown on screen here. We're not going to dwell on them for too long. You can pause the broadcast and make a note, and you can make those notes against your favourite drivers to see what success ballast they'll be taking into each and every race this round. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's make our way back to circuit side, and in good time as well, because we are not too far away from going into our qualifying session as all the drivers head on around there. And well, as they do, well, right now it's dry conditions here at Silverstone. We are expecting it to be dry all day long, so we're not going to have the tyre compound in the tyre out unless the rain sunny makes a little bit of a mischievous arrival. But it is one of many drives out there towards the front, of which Lee Horn is one of them, as he powers his way on down the Wellington Straight there in the Honda Civic Type R, and is looking to be quite composed here. And Lee Horn definitely has been one of those drivers who has proven to be increasingly quick as the season has gone on, but Lee, one of those drivers who also has been able to get a lot out of the car as the season has gone on. And you can never count him out there in his favourite car, his favourite TCR I should say, the Honda Civic Type R FK8, and he looks very happy behind the wheels of the machine. And well, the driver to take the first ever mixed conditions race win, and of course that was the infamous win many a round ago, and indeed a couple of seasons ago, where we got to see that absolutely monstrous performance where he made the gamble to go to the wet tyre, if my memory serves me correctly, at Suzuka, and he made it work out a treat, whereas many languished on a dry tyre in wet conditions. But as we say hello to a good number of you in the YouTube and Facebook chat, well, we do have there Steve Fry in the YouTube chat wishing the best luck to the Crest Autosport team, and in particular he'll be wishing the best of luck there to Nigel Stock, being their leading driver in the AM class. And we look forward to seeing what the number 98 driver can do today. Can he potentially wrap up proceedings, or will he not be able to? That's the challenge, of course, that Lewis Mason will be trying to make sure comes to fruition. And Nigel Stock, meanwhile, will be hoping that good luck just comes his way. But it really has been the story of Lewis Mason trying to get the upper hand on Stock. Two drivers of very different ages, as I'm to understand it, with Lewis Mason being significantly younger. I don't believe Lewis Mason has even turned 18 yet. However, don't quote me on that, to be fair. And I wouldn't want to guess his age, not to be impolite to him or anything along those lines, but he truly is a youngster. I do believe Nigel Stock being one of our more senior members of the grid. That's not to say that he is elderly or anything like that, but definitely there is a sizable age gap. But age makes no difference when you do go racing. What makes a difference is your talents behind the wheel. And Nigel Stock has plenty of talent, and Lewis Mason as well has plenty of untapped talent, which he's gradually tapping into. And that's what's been making their championship battle so intriguing as he roars his way down the back stretch. But as he does so, we will say hello there to Stephen de Gravelia, and well, he asked the question, how is the orange and blue standings working in terms of how do we split them? So, a little bit of context, at the start of the season, we did have two separate lobbies. One was orange and one was blue. So we didn't originally have all of our lobbies merged together, and that was because of the fact we had plenty of sign-ups, and for Season 9, we wanted to experiment by having two lobbies essentially to accommodate the fact that we had the best part of 80 plus sign-ups, and well, we previously run seasons where we had 60 cars on the grid, and we wanted to reduce the grids a little bit in order to make sure the racing was clean, fair and intense. But sometimes, as they like to say, too many cooks spoil the broth is the English proverb, and well, we definitely saw that a little bit, let's say, in Season 8, where there were a lot of drivers on the grid, perhaps a few too many. However, as the season went on, we found that the blue lobby gradually lost a few drivers for personal circumstances or drivers withdrawing for other reasons, and as a result, What it meant was that we decided, as of the midway point, so after round number 5, that we'd merge the two lobbies together to make sure that the blue lobby was not devoid of plenty of drivers out there, and that's why you do have the orange and blue lobby drivers. So that explains how they've all come together. But the idea is, when they were racing in their own lobbies, they had separate point systems, albeit using the same NXTCC point system that we've been using for some time, but the idea being that in the orange lobby, you score points based on where you finished overall and in your respective class, and the blue lobby, you did the same, and when we've merged it all together, we have maintained that. So what it means is our orange lobby drivers, they are only really battling drivers in their orange splits. So whether it's the orange pros, the orange primes, and the orange ams. The same for the blue lobby drivers. They've got to be mindful of the fact they don't want to necessarily be battling with drivers of the other lobby. But of course, is naturally the way of the NXTCC. That very quickly goes out the window when they're in the thick of the fighting, and it leads to absolutely spectacular battles. And we have seen plenty of those since the start of the second half of the season, and there are no regrets here in the fact that we do have the two lobbies merged together, because it has made things absolutely enthralling. But as we also say hello there to Katie Eames in the Facebook chat, who says, yay, race cars. Well, it's good to have you with us, Katie. And, well, I'm doing well, thank you. And I have recovered after Alton Park. And, well, for the uninitiated, ladies and gentlemen, I've had back-to-back weekends up at Alton Park Circuit in real life. Firstly, doing TV commentary for the British Automobile Racing Club in covering the Caterhams. And then a weekend after this weekend just gone, covering motorcycle racing with the North Gloucestershire Road Racing Club in circuit commentary. So my voice is a little bit frazzled and I'm quite tired, having done the best part of what has been 1,000 miles of driving in 2 weeks. Not normal for me, but I'm getting used to it and I'm back to full energy. And well, K teams will be cheering on the Rd9 Motorsport team as we do make our way then in towards qualifying, ladies and gentlemen. And without further ado, it's time for 15 minutes of qualifying. But who is going to put it on pole in our classes and overall? Let's find out here at the Silverstone National Circuit. So as all our drivers make the way out and 15 minutes begins to tick away, it'll tick away very quickly here, and that time will fly off into distance. Will they all make the way on out? Starting, of course, with Ben Benneyworth there, who decides to get the head start coming out the pit lane. He leaps ahead of Jamie Dory, who's normally the very first to get out the pit lane. But Ben Benneyworth says, hold up a second, ladies and gentlemen, I've got somewhere I need to be. And we'll understandably here, I think right now the tarmac is calling, and he wants to try and prove a point here as he chases down the orange prime title. But as he heads on around, we also say hello there to Mark Kent, teammate to the Full Tilt Motorsport with Boosted Motorsport driver Ben Benneyworth, and Mark, of course, an established NXTCC driver, not on the grid for this season due to personal circumstances and also due to health. However, I can tell you one thing, we definitely miss Mark on the grid every round. We don't see him out there, and Mark definitely not one of the fastest drivers out there, typically competing, if I remember correctly, and I'm sure you'll correct me if I've got this wrong, Mark, typically competing in the AM class, but has had some absolutely memorable moments, and I do in particular remember a phenomenal qualifying pole lap in his class at the Catalonia circuit all the way back in, I want to say, season 6, only for race number 1, unfortunately, to see him T-boned in towards the turn 5 hairpin at Catalonia, and that race suddenly going all the way backwards and now to fight very hard through the field. But I'm sure Mark will correct me if my historical brain has got that slightly wrong. I do try my best to very much remember. I really need to start writing the little book of the NXTCC at this point, because in 9 seasons I can't remember it all anymore, unfortunately. But as we say hello to him, and we also say hello to Phil McDougall there, who waves his hand and we wave our hand back, and I believe Phil is going to be out on the circuit, or I definitely hope he's going to be out there. And yes, he is, in fact, for the CXR Project Black team, and he's racing, of course, in what is the Blue Pro-Am split as he makes his way on down. We also say hello there to the Rd9 Esports account in Facebook, wishing the best luck to the Rd9 drivers, and I hope you're doing well, social media manager for Rd9 Esports. And we also say hello to Lewis Mason there, who unfortunately, and we do have a number of drivers with pit lane starts for race number 1, they do have qualifying bans. And to quickly walk you through, Lewis Mason is one of the unfortunate drivers who's picked one up. We also do have a qualifying ban for Michael Lease and also for Matthew Cheverton for penalty points picked up over the season, an instance at Donington Park putting them over the threshold to receive a 1-round qualifying ban and a pit lane start for race number 1. So it means Lewis Mason, much like Michael Lease and Matthew Cheverton, will all have a bigger uphill battle compared to what they were expecting, as Phil McDougall heads his way towards the timeline here for the first time in this qualifying session. And what's it going to be here for him? Well, he makes his way through in the 838, and it's going to be the bottom of the tower for now, 102.276, the bottom of the tower of drivers who have got laps in, and well, he's got a lot to do. But Reese Watt also says the same there in regards to Michael Lease. A lot to do tonight, no counting him out though, and unfortunately we won't be seeing Reese Watt on the grid tonight. Reese Watt, one of our very established Pro-Am drivers for JWM Motorsport. And indeed, I can tell you one thing, ladies and gents, that Witvoet, he may be a driver who we don't always see every season, but when he is out there, he is giving it everything. And indeed, he is one of those drivers, like many. In fact, he was the first ever driver of the Pro-Am class to take an overall win, and that occurred at Oschersleben in Season 2 of the Championship in the legendary three-way Pro-Am League battle for victory at Oschersleben, where Witvoet was the one who came out on top. Indeed, that was an interview after that round of race, and I always remember because he was absolutely ecstatic about it, as Adam Delton there gets a little bit tail happy as he makes his way out of Cops Bend, and well, he's currently the fastest driver out in his qualifying session with a sizable amount of success bust in the car. And as he makes his way down to the braking zone, well, Jamie Dory flashing his lights there and saying to Adam, how do you do? And well, there's contact between the two of them, a small prang, and Adam Delton there sent to the grass. And that's not a happy place to be. He toasts the pits. No, and he's not going to be able to recover it. But as he makes his way on around, and well, all the drivers make the way onwards, and well, Mark Kent confirming that brilliant pole lap at Catalonia was in Season 6. I haven't quite forgotten things. And also saying the first amateur finish on an overall podium, which did occur in the blue split lobby earlier on this season before he had to pull out of the championship. But Mark Kent definitely setting some major boundaries, and indeed one driver who you can never count out of putting off some blinders. But speaking of some blinders here, well, Marcel Fitch right now is trying to match Mark Kent's accolades by going 8th so far. In fact, make that 9th now, make that 10th overall, but he is the fastest of our orange AM drivers as Wayne Douglas gets a little bit too close behind him and goes very sideways. But the visual pole sitter right now heads on through the corner. That's going through Luffield and on towards the right hand here of Woodcock Bend, turn number 6, and heads towards the timeline 9. He needs to find a little bit more if he wants to put himself back on pole. Now, for the uninitiated, in the time and tell, you do have 6 different colorations. The best way to tell our drivers' classes. If it's some shade of green, it's the pros. The lighter shade is in reference to the orange lobby. Meanwhile, the darker shade is in reference to the blue lobby. And that follows all the way through our classes. As for our Pro-Ams, they're represented by pink and purple. Meanwhile, as for our blues, those are your AMs. And that explains how all of our classes sit in the time tower, ladies and gentlemen. So I do appreciate it. It can get a little bit confusing, particularly when you do have the best part now of almost 40 cars out there. Well, we were expecting there to be a slightly diminished field, given a lot of drivers are on a holiday today. But in fact, the fact that we've almost had 40 cars turn up to the circuit is absolutely brilliant to see. And well, Joe Doble, one of the drivers yet to get a lap time on the board. He is allowed to get a lap time on the board, unlike, say, Lewis Mason, Michael Lees and Matthew Cheverton. But right now, things have just not clicked together. He will very shortly get a lap on the board, I suspect. And as he completes his 4th tour of the circuit, he goes third. That's a 1 minute 0.785. A lovely lap there from Joe Doble, puts him right up alongside Isaac Doble. And well, Isaac Doble right now, as much as he enjoys the simulated racing, he's also enjoying the real life racing, as our number 65 driver here for the uninitiated this year has made his debut in real life racing as part of the BSRCC's Ford Fiesta Juniors Championship. And well, after a brilliant set of performances this weekend just gone, where he picked up 2 podiums and a win, he is now leading the championship with only a couple of rounds to go. And well, we look forward to seeing how that plays out for the youngster there. And indeed, right now, I can tell you one thing. If I was to disclose his age, ladies and gentlemen, the things I was doing at Isaac's age compared to what he's doing in real life right now, I definitely wish I could go back, reset and start over again, because Isaac definitely showing that he has a lot of motorsporting talent and following the footsteps of his older brothers of Joe and Mikey. But as he comes roaring his way on around and heading up towards the timeline, well, Mark Kent saying their holidays are for part-timers before admitting that he's just got back from a holiday. And indeed, we have got that running joke down in the paddock, which is if you go on holiday during the NXTCC, what exactly are you doing? And you should be taking your rig with you on holiday. And well, one driver on this grid definitely knows about doing that. He's in the pit lane at the moment, Lewis Mason, in the fact that he took his sim racing rig on holiday with him as of the last round at the Donington Park Grand Prix circuit, and he raced from there, if my memory serves me correctly. I might have got the rounds mixed up, but I know he did take the rig with him, and that was commitment from Lewis, no doubt about it. But as Mark Sykes here makes his way on through, let's come back to focusing on the driving a little bit more from our drivers here in this qualifying session. We've talked a little bit about everything up and down the field and some stories up and down the paddock. But right now, fastest driver out there as he emerges from the pit lane is Jamie Dory, and as he makes his way on out, well, he is the fastest on 1 minute 0.715. He is the fastest overall and of the Orange Pros, and well, potentially joining him on that front row provisionally would be Piotr Zalewski, the Semper Racing Audi RS3 driver, who you can see absolutely tucked into the rear there. of one of our Goldwing Motorsports drivers, another Audi, our prime Goldwing Motorsport driver of Sam Van Olst just in front. And well, right now, Piotr Jegosleski, he is the fastest of our blue lobby drivers. He looks to go up the inside there, and I think trying to send a message, which is, look, I am the faster driver. However, do keep in mind in qualifying, ladies and gentlemen, things work out a little bit differently as Jegosleski is demoted. It's now Wayne Douglas who puts himself right back to the top of the tower. And well, it does look like the Douglas Motorsport driver here looking incredibly quick, albeit keep in mind he doesn't have that much success ballast, if any at all, in that Hyundai Veloster, so therefore he does have a bit of an advantage as he makes his way out of turn at number 3 and down the back straight he goes. In fact, less weight means, of course, you're naturally going to go faster, and at circuit where you've got 2 major acceleration zones, well, you're definitely going to feel that advantage. And Douglas right now, well, he is the fastest of our blue drivers and overall at this time on a 1 minute 0.565, and that might be a tough margin for our drivers to beat. The fastest of our pro-ams in orange is iRacing Sports' Nick Clibbins, currently 4th. He's only 2 tenths off the overall pole time there, with a highly respectable 1 minute 0.76. Isidore moves up to 3rd. Alan McCain, meanwhile, says, well, my teammate's going to have to wait a little bit, as he does use the slipstream of his teammate to improve, and goes up to 2nd overall there with 1 minute 0.688. So a lovely lap there from Alan McCain. And I'll tell you one thing, whatever he applies himself to, whether it be MX-5s, or alternative touring car racing machines, or GT3s, Alan can never be counted out, as Adam Delman off camera jumps up to 3rd, puts in a personal best lap, and also a purple sector on the opening sector lap, and that puts him all the way up there now on 1 minute 0.689. Only 1,000th of a McCain's time. That's how close it's starting to get. As for what is your blue primes, he's parked to the pit lane right now, and your pole sitter provisionally is Phil McDougall, who's doing very well for CXR Project Black. He sits there waiting to go back out, albeit I think he's very happy with the job he's done, and he is a sizable way ahead of the 2nd place blue prime driver of Andy Aldhouse on a 1 minute 1.21 to the nearest 100th. That is 6.5 tenths off the overall pole time. However, one thing to be pointed out here, of course, ladies and gentlemen, looking at the time tower, look at the pole time, and then look how many drivers are covered by a second from pole all the way down that timing tower. And if your eyes are very quick, you'll notice that we go all the way down to 32nd place, where Dylan Hunter is 9.5 tenths off the overall pole time. 32 drivers within a second of each other, or in other words, a 10th around here is going to propel you a long way up the order. And if Andy Aldhouse here was to improve by a 10th, it would immediately launch him all the way up into what would be 22nd place. He would gain the best part of 5 places through just a 10th of time, and that is where you can see those improvements come through very quickly indeed. As he makes his way on around and through the corners right now, over Aldhouse here, definitely it's going to be improvements that he is trying to make. But if he tries to find that time, he'll try and use the Toyota Quatermass Motorsport car in front of him to run a bit wide. That's the number 5 of Andy Gell. And we'll Gell here right now running that number 5. I believe that's in reference to the Formula 1 driver of Sebastian Vettel. It's his favourite number, and well, I think he does not idolise, but he's a big fan of Sebastian Vettel. But to be fair, many a person is. Indeed, I'm a fan of Sebastian Vettel as well. Brilliant Formula 1 driver, particularly in his latter years of Formula 1, as he closed out his F1 career, and as he makes his way on through, he also does name his car after his wife. And well, I can't remember the name of his wife. It is on the inside of the car, and we will get an onboard with him a bit later on. But speaking of onboards, we owe you an onboard or a reference lap around here, and it's to Matthew Addy, one of our rising stars in the Orange Prime class, to take us for a flying lap. As he makes his way out of the final corner across that timeline, in Scott Spendy gets ready to go here. And on to the brakes he'll go at a 75 metres of corner apex. Drops down to 5th, holds the apex curve nicely there at 96 miles an hour, and now full throttle all the way up towards the Maggotts hairpin. As he makes his way on through, it's going to be a long run here, but hard on the brakes he goes to the Kinkajou, straight lines the corner, down to 3rd gear, lets the car roll a little bit deep, and then back on the throttle as the front end grips up, and then uses all the tarmac there and the throttle full flat out in order to turn through the corner and onto the Wellington straight. So 3 corners down, 3 still to go. Brings the car over to the right-hand side, and as he does so, sights his braking point now for Brooklands into Luffield. He'll be on the brakes here at about 70 metres of corner apex. Trail braking as late as possible to hit a late apex, and nicely done there for Matthew Addy. Now brings the car into the middle of the road and sets up the run in towards Luffield. He does go a little bit deep, but it is by design. I think he feels as though if he goes deep and gets the car pointed, he'll get a better exit, but that is a little bit too greedy with the throttle, and Addy, in fact, ends up drifting to the gravel. Now invalidates his lap as he makes way through Woodcote Bend flat flat out to complete lap and start it all over again. So you can see what he's going for, but for Addy, I think just a little bit unharmonious there, and it didn't quite work out for him as he makes his way on around. But as he does so, well, for Addy, it's 13th place at the moment, and the best part of 4th place in our orange Pro-Ams, so he needs a little bit more time out there. But continuing our rundown of the order, well, currently the leading blue AM driver is Nigel Stock. He's in the pit lane parked up there, and he is blue AM pole sitter ahead of Roy Plummer, who, with a very colourful livery, is going to potentially take his best qualifying performance of the season here in the blue AM class, which should be 2nd place. And he is only the best part of what is 300ths of a Stock's time, albeit keep in mind the success ballast that Stock is carrying in his car is the best part of 25 kilograms. Roy, meanwhile, has none in his car whatsoever, but still, he is definitely showing some great performances. Of course, this is a little bit offset by the fact that Lewis Mason is not permitted to qualify, and the big question would be, where would he be on this grid if he was allowed to qualify with 16 kilograms of success ballast in the car? Well, that's a big what-if question that we'll never know the answer to. But what we will know the answer to is who is looking to be your AM pole sitter in the orange AMs, and it is going to be Marcel Fritsch at the moment, unless Mark Sykes can pull off some magic, but he's in the pit lane. I don't think he's going to be able to go any further. And, well, we do have 39 drivers here in total now, because we have had a couple more drivers turn up at the 11th hour, but the last lot of drivers who've set in lap time so far is Stanley Donaldson, 1.1 seconds off the overall pole time. But look at that, even at the very bottom end, he is only 200ths of his teammate Andy Chell, and William Kirtler is only a further 100 up the road, so it is going to be very close between all of them. As Mikey 3D in the YouTube chat, that's Michael Lee, says, it's almost impossible to pass here. I seriously have my work cut out. Indeed, that is a big question that we haven't come to. How are our drivers going to prioritise qualifying over the race? And the answer is they will massively need to prioritise qualifying well here, because you can battle at Silverstone National Circuit, but the problem is battling around here costs time, and you've got so many direction changes at this circuit and such a wide circuit that it means that every corner can be fought from the inside and it can be fought from the outside. And add to that as well the fact the slipstream of the car in front is just as important as looking for a move, and it means that making overtakes here, as Michael Lisa said, are almost impossible, just for the simple reason you've got so many variables in the overtake that can play to both the attacker and the defender's advantage and disadvantage. So qualifying well takes away a lot of those variables. We can expect some absolutely brilliant battles here, but they will prove costly, and whilst you may gain one place, the reality is you may actually lose the opportunity of gaining several more. But the checker flag comes out in this qualifying session as of now, and as it does so, who is going to be on pole? Well, a lot of our drivers still on laps, and well, some are coming towards the end of laps, and one of whom is going to be Lee Horn as he makes it out the final corner. Luciano Witvoet, who was 9th, I think he's going to try and improve, but he hasn't. He's going to stay 9th there on a 1:0, and when that is a 1:0.77 for Witvoet. But as we do see Lee Horn cross the timeline, well, he's pulling along there Jamie Dory, trying to help his teammate out, but Jamie Dory does not improve from 3rd place. Andy Aldhouse improves to a 1:01.0, but it doesn't quite work out for Aldhouse in terms of moving up the order. He stays where he is in 26th place or 2nd place of the blue Pro-Ams. More drivers out there. Nick Clearings being one of the very last drivers to put in a qualifying time here. The Irish Esports driver tucking into the toe of Roy Plummer. I think he might have got this absolutely right, but Gavin Gardner right now behind Mikey Doble is looking very quick here. He's currently 12th. Mikey Doble, overall Orange Championship leader, leaps up to 14th place. He doesn't quite improve. Success Pass really holding him back, and Gavin Gardner, meanwhile, moves up to 6th for the 1:0.702. A lovely lap there from the NXTGEN Pink driver, and the run-up of the inaugural season of the NXTCC in that dramatic end in the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. But Gardner definitely putting in a great performance right at the end of qualifying, and that is it, ladies and gentlemen. Nick Clearings also moved up to 9th place. Qualifying is said and done, and on overall pole position, it's Wayne Douglas for blue and overall, and he'll be joined on that front row of the grid by the orange pole sitter, and that will be Adam Delmont, who sits in the pit lane there, and he'll be happy to put it on pole. Jamie Dory, meanwhile, with the assistance of some teammates out there, but to be fair, he won't be upset about that. It's a team game. He takes 3rd place. Yeah, that's his best qualifying performance of the season, ladies and gentlemen, as we make our way to the grid for our first race of the day here at the Silverstone National Circuit for round number 9 of the NXTCC. So as our drivers make their way onto the grid, this is how they line up then for our race number 1 of round 9 of season 9 of the NXTCC, brought to you on iRacing and powered by Doble Motorcycles. Wayne Douglas takes pole position there on the NXTGEN Black Machine. He does take pole position by the best part of what is 1/10 over Adam Delmont for NXTGEN Green. It's going to be a feisty front row there between the two pro drivers, pole sitting in their respective lobby splits, with Jamie Dory starting 3rd just behind, and he will be looking to try and move forward from there as quickly as he possibly can. The next gen pink driver then being the company of Alan McCain, who is the pole sitter of the Orange Pro-Ams, and the iRacing Esports driver having his best qualifying performance of the season. He won't be upset about that whatsoever and be looking to try and move forward from there and make sure he doesn't get caught up to by the rest of the prime field. However, looking to move forward as well, Lee Horn for next gen pink. He's normally a gradual starter in these races, but you'll need to be a quick one today, even though he has got the company of Gavin Garner, his teammate, alongside him on the third row of the grid. Isaac Doble begins this one in 7th place for Doble Sim Racing, ahead of Piotr Jezleski, with the Semper Racing driver then being followed up by Nick Clearings, second of the Orange Pro-Am drives for iRacing Esports, and Luciano Witvoet for World of Racing with STR Motorsports completes your top 10. The Dutchman there knowing he's got some work cut out for him if he wants to try and gain on Mikey Doble. Now he has out-qualified Mikey Doble, who you see there in 14th, but on the path to getting to Mikey Doble, we have best rest in 11th, Kieran Smart for Track Scotland, what is the third of our Orange Pro-Am drivers on this grid. Joe Doble starts 12th for Doble Sim Racing, qualifying again normally where he's expected to at this point, around the bottom end of the top 10 or just outside of it. From the number 011 driver, it's then your AM pole sitter in orange, Marcel Fritsch, with an incredible lap to put in 13th, the highest qualifying position for a driver in this combined lobby since the midway point of the season, and that AM driver doing a phenomenal job for Rd9 Esports. Mikey Doble starts his one 14th in the number 1 car, and well, the Doble Sim Racing driver will be looking ahead to know that Witvoet is only 5 places up the road, but what can he do to try and get ahead of him? That's the challenge. Matthew Addy starts this one in 15th for WSS Racing, ahead of Lewis Stelmont for Next Gen Green. Lewis Stelmont not having the happiest of qualifying sessions, but to be fair, sometimes that's the way it goes, and his dad will have told him about that and have taught him how to get his head down. Phil McDougall starts on blue Pro-Am pole for 6R Project Black in 17th place. Well done to him for another great pole lap in the class. Ahead of Ben Alchair for Full Tilt Motorsport with Boosted Motorsport, who starts 18th. On row 10 to complete your top 20, it's Russell Fowler for Rd9 Esports and Sam Van Ols for Goldwing Motorsports. Outside the top 20 then, the story continues on this grid, because on the 11th row of the grid, it's Duncan Ryan for Goldwing Motorsports and Benjamin Gregory for Full Tilt Motorsport with Boosted Motorsport. Ben Benneyworth for Quatermass Motorsport, he starts in 23rd place, third of the Blue Pro drivers, and knowing that he needs a huge result now if he wants to try and close down that gap to the championship leader of Matthew Cheverton. However, of course, Matthew Cheverton starting from the back of the field, it's going to feel as though it is an opportunity to score some points, but he'll want more than what he's on course to get here, at least right now. Conrad Kula starts 24th for Semper Racing, with mixed fortune seeming to strike him in this qualifying session, after he's been going quite well in these qualifying sessions as of recent rounds. Mark Sykes begins this one 25th for WSS Racing, ahead of Andy Aldhouse, with the GBRC driver then being followed up by Semper Racing Slamir Javoski and Nigel Stott for Crest Autosport, who is your blue and pole sitter. Carl Thompson starts 29th for GBRC, ahead of Roy Plummer, with the second place Blue Am driver there for Next Gen Black. Well, he'll be feeling quite happy with that qualifying performance, but what can he convert it into now in terms of finishing position? On row at number 16, we have Joe Gibson for Goldwing Motorsports and Fraser Rostons for Next Gen Black. And it's Dylan Hunter for Adapt Sim Racing, ahead of William Kurtler for Aztec Racing, with Andy Chell for Quatermass Motorsport in 35th, ahead of Stanley Donaldson for Quatermass Motorsport. That's the last of the valid qualifying time set. And then we do have, of course, the pit lane starters, Matthew Cheverton being one of them for Aztec Racing, ahead of Michael Lees for JW Motorsport, and Lewis Mason will complete your starting order of 39 drivers there, starting from the very back of the grid. Well, that's how they all line up, ladies and gentlemen, and as all drivers make their way into position, they'll be very shortly starting to get the countdown in their grid boxes with regards to when the lights are going on. We do have our race director keep an eye on all the proceedings, and we are almost ready to go racing here for the first race of the day at the Silverstone National Circuit. With Wayne Douglas, he's going to try and cover off Adam Delmont, who sits to the left of him, or at least to the right of him from the driver's perspective. But how will it go? It's time to find out. So it's 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go as Wayne Douglas there gets a jump start. The same for Jamie Dory. Both of them getting a jump start there. I think Dory seeing Douglas move, and as a result, both of them going too quickly off the gun. And Adam Delmont will now recognise that immediately. You know he's going to take the lead of this race within the opening lap, because by the end of this lap, they'll need to come into the pit lane and serve what will be a stop-and-go penalty. But as they come charging down in towards turns 2 and 3, well, all the field right now saved him for into the corners, and Jamie Dory trying to put the pressure on. Gavin Gardner, meanwhile, looking up the inside of Isaac Doble there as they come on through. And a bit further back, well, there's plenty of battling to unfold here in the early stages, as would be expected going through the Maggots hairpin, albeit the field starts to spread a little bit, and Ben Benneyworth going 3 wide there with Duncan Wright and Conrad Kula. Kula on the outside of the circuit, Duncan Wright in the middle of the road, and Ben Benneyworth up the inside. He goes 3 abreast here into Brooklands, but is he going to be able to make it work out? And the answer is no. He backs off, as behind Joe Gibson immediately on the attack here versus Andy Aldhouse, but he's got Nigel Stott, the Blue Am leader, trying to move a bit further forward. He's going to be on the inside. Is Stott coming on through left field? Ben as he latches onto it with Jamie Doyle into the pit lane. Wayne Douglas stays out there. Well, I think he gets one extra lap to potentially serve it, but after that it will be converted into a disqualification for not respecting the black flag. But as they make their way towards the end of one lap, the lap is very quickly over and more are to come. But after one lap of racing, it's Wayne Douglas with a pit lane penalty, which he'll need to serve as he makes his way around here from that jump start. He leads ahead of Adam Delwant, who is the effective race leader for Next Gen Green. Then we have Lee Horn in third ahead of Alan McCain, the orange pram leader. But he goes deep and maggots, and as a result, Isaac Doble looks up the inside, can't quite find it at the moment. Then it's Nick Clemens ahead of Gavin Garner and Luciano Witvoet, with Joe Doble in ninth and Piotr Jegorzelski completing a top 10. Kieran Smart, meanwhile, getting very eager to make a move on Jegorzelski. He looks one way, then he looks the other way, and he's not going to be able to find it at the moment, at least, as they onto the brakes. But look at this from Joe Doble versus Witvoet. Witvoet trying to go outside to inside. It's an important move here for Witvoet. He needs to get away from Mikey Doble, who, to be fair, is not too far behind him. Doble right now in 11th place and keeping a good eye on here. But Witvoet gets ahead of Joe Doble coming on through Woodcock Corner. And right now, the World of Racing STR Motorsports driver still under pressure in a very heavy Audi versus quite a light Hyundai Veloster. And you can see there, despite the Audi straight line speed, that Veloster looking very quick as the rear snaps loose of Joe Doble's car, and that would have been snatching on the brakes. There were rear brake bias, but he collects it back together, and Doble loses momentum. But now we'll have his brother catching up behind. Meanwhile, Mikey Doble's not got it easy. He's got Kieran Smart, who's going to try and fend off the attacks here of Lewis Delmont right behind him. But further back, Marcel Fritsch battling free wide. Oh, up a second. That's not how you take Maggot's hairpin, as that's Benjamin Gregory taking the rally cross line now. I suspect he might have got pinched in a 3 to 4 wide moment. And, well, the full tilt motorsport driver brings it back on, flashing his lights. That's Morse code for he's not too happy. And some swear words thrown into the mix there. And, well, we'll get a replay of what exactly happened to him in due course. But definitely a bit of a nightmare moment for him as he makes his way on around and loses time. Serves a slow down penalty for the off track as well. And tucks in mind Duncan Rice. He falls all the way down to 9th place in the orange prams as Wayne Douglas, as I look out my content booth window, makes his way down pit lane, and as a result, well, he'll be serving that penalty for the jump start, and now he'll fall all the way down the mix, and Jamie Dory's all the way to the back of the field after that penalty, and it will be the same for Wayne Douglas with the way it's all played out. However, looking a bit further up from the back of the field, Andy Chell versus William Kurtler. They're having a good little ding-dong battle, these two, for third place in the blue AMS, and that's going to be a lovely run there for Kurtler, but he gets too close to the back of Andy Chell's car and taps on the rear as we ride on board with number 132 driver from Aztec Racing, and right now the Audi Sport Customer Racing team, well, looking quite aggressive here. How he's got to time his moves. He goes, oh, goodness me, that's a car round there. Not quite sure who that was. Was that Matthew Cheverton who'd gone the wrong way? I don't think it was Cheverton. I think that was Duncan Marai, because if that was Cheverton, well, right now he's held on to 33rd on the time tower, but that was Lee's having to give way. Well, in fact, Lee's got in ahead of William Cutler. I was saying William Cutler had to give way to Michael Lees there, who went up the inside of him in towards Maggots, and Cutler right now, I think, just having to back off the throttle a little bit. Lewis Mason, I think, also got caught up in all of that, so there's been a bit of drama, and we'll have to get a replay of that when we can. But right now, it's going to be the question of how long Andy Chell can keep Michael Lees behind him, and I suspect the answer is going to be not for long, as Lemir Jarvosky fighting hard with Stanley Donaldson in the meantime. And it's been for 27th place as they go on to a 5th tour of the circuit under race conditions. Jarvosky on the inside, Donaldson on the outside. Jarvosky will make it straight forward into Cox Bend. Donaldson will now try and come back there in the Audi RS3 versus the Elantra. Both very quick cars on the straight, albeit the difference being that the Audi has a little bit more acceleration in the lower gears compared to the Elantra. The Elantra has the worst tyre degradation at higher track temperatures, but that's Andy Chell being passed there by Michael Lees, and the doors open for William Kurtler, and this fight for third place in the blue AM category now. It's going to be a drag race between two Audi RS3s, neither of them carrying any success ballast in the car, and well, it's going to be Chell who goes defensive here down into Brooklands. He's going to take the classic middle of the road line. Kurtler backs off there, and Matthew Cheverton makes his way around the outside of Next Gen Black's Fraser Ostens, who almost drifts his way onto the apex grass there at Brooklands, but catches it just in the nick of time. But as he plays catch with the car, when we look back to Alan McCain, as our leaders make the way onto lap number 6, and you can definitely see the top two are starting to bolt away. However, as they all come through, well, it does look as though Alan McCain right now are really trying to be the cork in the proverbial bottle and prevent the places from flying out. But Isaac Doble is going to try and shake things up here as he looks up the inside there, tries to punch the cork out of the way, and will does so as Alan McCain has to drift a little bit deep as a result of the move from Isaac Doble, and Nick Clemens now tries to get involved. But Isaac Doble, understandably, will want to get out start of this as we jump on board with the 5th place man. He's the 3rd runner in this group, and Isaac Doble directly in front of him. Alan McCain to the left, that's Clemens' teammate, and right now these two iRacing Esports drivers both leading. Oh, goodness me, that's a big snap from McCain. Now Clemens is going to have to go around the outside here. Will he make it all the way around? They're too wide coming through the corner, and as we continue to ride on board, they will be too wide on the exit as well. And well, great respectful racing between the two teammates, but the problem is here, they find themselves in a bit of a conundrum, which is they're enjoying fighting each other, but they're losing the leaders, and they're causing the whole field to queue up behind them, and it's 2 by 2 here. Promise you it's not a rolling formation lap, ladies and gentlemen. We are a good number of laps into this one, but the point being that Gavin Garner and Luciano Witvoet are queuing up behind this, and right now the iRacing Esports pair are causing a little bit of a traffic jam here as Joe Doble's right on the back of this as well. 2 by 2 they go into the braking zone. Joe doesn't fancy making it 3 wide, understandably. That'd be way too risky, and well, Witvoet is still there versus Gavin Garner. That is incredible battling between the two Audi drivers, but only one can get the upper hand of the other, and it will be Witvoet who gets the upper hand at the corner, but on the exit it's Gardner who's able to use the wider run of the corner in order to carry more speed down towards Brooklands Bend. He'll be on the inside now, into left and to right, but the direction changes here mean it's almost impossible to finish the move, and that's what Michael Lease was referring to earlier in the YouTube chat, with the fact he was worried about the pit lane start. But coming through the right-hander, well, now we see that Witvoet on that inside line, he's forced Gavin Gardner to go a little bit deep, and as a result, that's going to enable Witvoet to seal the deal as Alan McCain returns ahead of Nick Clemens there after their side-by-side battle only a lap ago. But that battle, which started a lap ago, finally finishes a lap and a bit later, and more on towards lap number 8 they charge. But with that, we need to take a look back at some of the moments from the start of the race. Now we start off at the very front, and watch this as the lights went out, ladies and gentlemen. You'll notice, look to the right, Wayne Douglas and Jamie Dory, they both move a little bit too early. Wayne Douglas went, and Jamie Dory slightly slipped off the clutch there just before the lights went out. So that explained what was the full start from both of them. Then a little bit later on, we had some fantastic running down in towards the opening bend, up and down the field. There was no doubt about it. But from there, what else happened on the opening couple of laps? Well, we had this for Benjamin Gregory in lap number 3, and this was coming down in towards turns 2 and 3. He was at the time caught up behind a battle in front of him, but under braking, a tap on the rear of the car there. That was from Slamir Jarvosky, sent the Full Tilt Motorsport driver full tilt onto the grass, but thankfully he collected it together. But understandably, that is why he flashed his lights. He wasn't too happy about that one. Then, from what happened to him, we also had, in fact, I think that was Piotr Czechoslovaski. My apologies. No, it was Slamir Jarvosky. I was right the first time. We then had this for Cole Thompson. Now, this was on lap number 3 as well, and at the time, the Honda Civic Type R driver made his way into the braking zone, pranged down the rear quarter panel by one of the Quatermass Motorsport machines, and the 77 driver going sideways. That was Stanley Donaldson, who collected him on the rear right, and, well, unfortunately for Cole Thompson, he won't be too happy about that. We also had this for Russell Fowler on lap number 3. And Russell Fowler already picking up damage. Well, that was damage picked up at Maggots, and well, the car having to crawl along there and not in a healthy state whatsoever. And then we had this for Duncan Marai on lap number 4, only a lap later. What happened to Duncan? He's found himself in woe again, and on the braking here went on in, and Nigel Stock came charging on the inside line, made the contact, and Duncan Marai there, the innocent party, I think he'll feel, and I would be inclined to agree with him. The 33 driver being turned sideways and left with nothing to do, as that's when we had Lewis Mason coming to the side of him, and that explains why Lewis Mason suddenly picked up a load of damage after starting his recovery drive from the pit lane. So Lewis Mason's race going from good to bad to great to disaster. Very quickly there, a whole host of adjectives being thrown in, and we come back to your live racing as we reach the halfway point. And well, those were some of the stories that were not caught on camera necessarily in the opening half of the race. But as our drivers continue the way on, our top 4 are now starting to separate away from the field, of which 4th place man Luciano Witvoet here, despite having 48 kilograms of success ballast in the number 60 Audi. Well, the world of racing driver right now doing a phenomenal job in making that weight not feel as though it's actually there. As we do see Nick Clibbins on the outside of Joe Doble, trying to go defensive there through Brooklands into Luffield, but Joe Doble gets ahead and parks it on the apex just in time at Luffield Bend. You can see Clemens wanted to get nice and close, but Doble simply said to him, no you don't, as we ride on board looking back from the 5th place man right now, and he looks to be in control of this, at least for the moment. making the way all the way through. We do say hello there to Whiskey Runners Racing, also to none other than Stuart Winnis in the YouTube chat. They're both doing well by the looks of things, and well, at least I hope you guys are doing well. And sorry to see that you couldn't make it onto the grid today, Mr. Winnis, in the fact that you did have to go to work, but glad to have you here tuning in and cheering on Track Scotland's teammate to you, of course, and that is Kieran Smart. As Joe Double right now, we continue to ride on board and look back from the rear of, and that is the pressure being surmounted by Nick Clemens, the Orange Pro-Am leader. But as they make the way on around, all these drivers right now pushing each other onwards as much as possible, and well, it does seem as though there's a little bit of a lull in the fighting between them, but I suspect this is going to be the calm before the proverbial storm. But onward they go as we say hello to Matthew Cheverton, who we look forward to seeing on the grid in race number 2. He's finally made it to the circuit. Unfortunately, he missed the starting call-up procedure for race number 1. A little bit late to the party, but better late than never, I say. And keep your eyes out for him. Race number 2 will start from the back of the field, but he will be very eager to make a big impression. Now, speaking of big impressions here, definitely Andy Chell and William Kurtner are making a great impression on us today. The blue Am drivers here still scrapping over third place in their class, both eager to chase what will be a limited number of podiums from this season and adding one to it. But right now it's Chell holding off Kurtner with Fraser Rostons on the back of the pair of them, watching on. But I believe Rostons having a bit of difficulty with the rearward brake bias of that Honda. It's cutting loose a lot under braking in terms of the rear stepping out. And well, you may be thinking, well, these are front engine front wheel drive. Surely they're going to understeer more than they're going to oversteer. Yes, on paper they will. However, the one thing that drivers are allowed to change on the car is the brake bias setting, and if they move it further back towards the rear brakes, what happens is the rear brakes do the majority of the work, but when they come off the brakes, it does mean the rear of the car is very likely to snap loose, and it causes a pendulum effect on the rear of the car that means the car drifts into the corners rather than go straight line in if they were more front biased. So therefore it is a bit of a risk versus reward. You get more rotation, but then you've got to tame the rear of the car down. And Andy Chell right now still being pushed on by Kurtler as Jamie Dory passes Fraser Rostons towards the rear. And in fact, Chell seems to be caught up behind his teammate Donaldson here. That's not helping him at all. Stanley Donaldson not being a team player in this one. That's not belittling him. But the fact that I think Andy Chell at this point is probably thinking to himself, Stanley, if you could politely get a move on, because I kind of have a problem here. And that is that Mr. Kurtler is trying to go around the outside of him again. Doesn't quite find it this time, but he's definitely very close here as he looks one way then the other, looking towards what is the colouring pencils on the back. And we'll pick a colour. He's going to try and roll a bit here, and I suspect it's going to be red because the Aztec Racing Machine tries to go up the inside and make it a red third place for the Blue Am class. A bit of contact between the two of them. It's great racing between them though as they make the way down towards Maggots here, and as they do, well, that number 13 Prince be entertaining. Jamie Dory goes up the inside of one. He takes both of them there. Does he get it stopped? The answer is thereabouts, but he loses the place he just gained. And Jamie Dory being very eager in that Hyundai Elantra, but in the end the eagerness catching him out just a little bit too much, but thankfully able to steer clear of any danger. But that was an opportunity that unfortunately he didn't quite make the most of. How you can see both drivers in the M class are a bit surprised, and Dory's now going to try and look around the outside of Kurtler. Kurtler goes all in, but so it does Chell. Chell completely misses brake marker. He's going to lose the place there, not just one but two, as Dory tries to go around the outside of him now. On the exit, Brock Lindsay towards Luffield Bend, and Jamie Dory will get this done or thereabouts as that Elantra's going to have the tow, and it's also going to have the wider exit line, which will give him some speed as Fraser Rostons now tries to get onto the back of his rival. Russell Fowler, meanwhile, he's tucked in behind none other than Duncan Rye, albeit these drivers, they are what is effectively half a field down at this point as they end up in a bit of a scramble here. Indeed, it's getting all complicated in terms of where they are in the running order at this point, but Fowler versus Rye, they're enjoying a good scrap for the last of the places on the overall running order, and 10th place in the Orange Am class. But going from the very back of the field, let's return to the very front of it, and here is Adam Delmont leading the way right now. He is 2.5 seconds clear of Lee Horn, and then you have Isaac Doe completes your top three, and then you have the rest of the pack starting to give chase, with Luciano Witvoet still gradually trying to open up a bit of a gap. He is 4/10 clear of Joe Doble behind him, and that's your top five. And then it is your leading Orange Prime driver Nick Clemens in 6th ahead of Alan McCain, with Mikey Doble on the rear. And will for Mikey at this point, even though Witvoet is going to finish in 4th place by looks of things, and Mikey 8th, which means he loses some points. The great news is he'll have a lot less weight going into race number 2, and the tactic will be there to capitalise on it, whereas Witvoet will still have the majority of the weight he's taken into this race. However, enough about weight. I mean, while we've been waiting for this battle, and that is some brilliant battling there between Sam Van Olst, Piotr Jablonski and Lewis Delmont. The Goldwyn Motorsport driver for Knowles, the Audi in gold at the front of the trio here, trying to hold off the charge of the orange Audi of Piotr Jablonski, and then we do have the white and green NXTGEN green Honda of Lewis Delmont trying to pick his way through, and two drivers of the same class, that is Delmont and Van Olst, and Kim Smart's over the back of this as well, and I think he fancies his opportunities as we jump on board with the Track Scotland Elantra driver. Now through the right-hander he comes. As he does so, what can he do at this point? And the answer is not too much. In fact, he has an absolutely abysmal run coming out of what is Luffield Bend there. And indeed, if I've ever seen somebody make a ham sandwich of Luffield Bend, Kieran Smart's put himself up there. And well, that's not to be unfair to him, but he has lost a lot of time. He's lost the best part of 4 attempts on that corner exit. I think some understeer just catch him out, but the circuit temperature is gradually rising. And well, the reason why that is significant is because as we show you the weather on the right-hand side of the screen, what you'll see now is that we do have a track temperature of 27 degrees centigrade, ambient at 20 degrees, and it does mean that these Elantra's tyres are just feeling a slight pinch compared to ours. It's normally 40 degrees centigrade and higher where it becomes really noticeable, but we do have a high rate of tyre degradation here at the Silverstone National Circuit because you are constantly in the dirty air of other cars, plus also you are constantly really abusing the front tyres, particularly that front left tyre. So that means Kieran Smart will be struggling out of Baggett's hairpin and also coming out of Luffield Bend, and that's why he had that mistake on the previous lap, because he is really contesting a front tyre that does not want to cooperate. But speaking of cooperating there, as Lewis Delman takes a bit of an excursion wide, Van Olst really trying to keep Jegorzelewski behind him at the moment. All fighting hard here as we continue to make our way towards the very end of this race. Some absolutely brilliant battles up and down the field, and thankfully we caught most of them, no doubt about it. Sam Van Olst right now holding on to the final spot inside the top 10 if he can do so. Remember, the overall success balance is done by your lobby's overall top 10, not by the overall combined top 10. So therefore, this overall top 10 isn't exactly how the weight's going to be distributed. So just keep that in mind, ladies and gentlemen. We do go to race number 2. It adds a bit more complexity to the weight. Indeed, a lot of our drivers, they've openly admitted they're not worrying anymore about what weight they're carrying. They just get told what setup they have to run in terms of the weight that goes in the car, and then they'll figure it out from there. Now, speaking of figuring things out, one driver we haven't really talked about today, Dylan Hunter for Adapt Sim Racing. 3rd place right now in the Blue Prime class, ahead of Joe Gibson. He does have the absence today of his main championship rival, Mike Barber, who will be back on the grid for the season finale. That means that for Dylan Hunter, he has a golden opportunity here to try and level the playing field before going to Brands Hatch. But right now, he finds himself tucked behind Slamir Jarvosky with Andy Aldhouse and Phil McDougall both much further up the road. Of course, one thing that goes in Hunter's stride is the fact that he has the second highest prime success ballast of any of the blue primes, whereas Aldhouse and Phil McDougall have very little weight in the car, if anything at all. So this 3rd place will feel very rewarding as he goes on to lap number 18, but Joe Gibson is behind him, and right now looking to try and capitalise when Hunter looks for a move on Jarvosky. At Cox Bend, well, there's going to be an opening because it's going to be a pull run out the corner, and well, it's Gibson looking up the inside. He's going to try and squeeze his way in, but unfortunately he's not close enough. Taps the rear of the American driver, but right now the Briton has to wait his turn. He continues to poke, he continues to nudge, but he can only do it so many times, and if you do it too much with that graft, you end up grifting your way to a penalty. As he heads down the back straight on the Wellington. All right, now staying nice and firmly in the wheel tracks of Hunter. Hunter looks to the outside here, looking for a move, but will it come off this time? The answer is no. Jarvosky just seems to have a little bit more confidence under braking. He's able to extend the brake pedal more through these medium speed corners, and that is where the trail braking is really hooked up for Jarvosky. I think right now he's got a very comfortable feeling of the brake pedal on that Elantra, and you can see the way the body language of the car rolls is in the fact that if he needs to, he can just let the car go deeper towards the apex, but still slow it enough to make the corner, whereas Hunter, it seems like once he's committed to the braking, that is the corner done. And we're seeing that here as he looks to the move in towards Copse Corner, and Gibson again gets the better run. We've had a bit of drama as well, it should be pointed out, for Sam Van Olst. We'll come back to that shortly as they make their way down, and this time it's going to look up the inside to the outside for Gibson, but he's going to get a bit too close. He'll look for the switchback now coming on through the corner, but as he does so, Wayne Douglas up his inside, his elbows out. There's Wayne Douglas introduces himself, and behind is Michael Lease on his penultimate lap, and Wayne Douglas of course recovering after what was that start, the jump start penalty, and making his way all the way up to 26th already. But as they come down, well, Joe Gibson there decides to back off and let things go, as Hunter meanwhile still fighting there, battling with Jarvosky through, but there's a tap between them. Douglas dives up the inside. That's not where you want to be if your name's Dylan Hunter. He's turned sideways. He loses the position there to Joe Gibson, as also Michael Lee squeezes his way on through. Well, as they all come to blows, ladies and gentlemen, we must come back towards the front of the field because it's a slowdown penalty for Nick Clemens that's going to release the Orange Pram lead to Alan McCain. McCain takes it back, and as he does so, well, right now it's going to be the battle of the two teammates to the finish line here for who's going to take Orange Pram class honours. But further back as well, where Phil McDougall finds himself in a long pack of cars here, but he is the sole blue Pram driver in this pack, so therefore he's just focusing right now on finishing this race, I would imagine, as they all wind their way down the Wellington Straight. But it is a long run of cars, and at the very front of it is Piotr Jegorzelewski and Mikey Doble. But as they come towards the end of their race, meanwhile at the very front of the field, well, for Adam Delman, he may have started second, but after inheriting the lead from a jump start from Wayne Douglas, he's never looked back, and for Adam Delman, he adds another overall victory to his career. Well done to Adam Delman ahead of Lee Horn, who takes second place ahead of Isaac Doble, and then it will be Luciano Witvoet who takes fourth place ahead of Joe Doble. Alan McCain takes Orange Prime Class honours ahead of his teammate Nick Clibbins, with Gavin Garner in 8th ahead of Mikey Doble, and Blue Pro overall winner, it's Pietro Gianzaleski in 10th ahead of Kieran Smart. A bit further back, Phil McDowell takes Blue Prime honours in 15th place. Well done to him. And winning the orange class will go to Marcel Fritsch there, with Mark Sykes not too far behind him, separated between them by Sam Van Olst. And then it will be for Nigel Stott. Another Blue Am win, and a brilliant one there, delivering on the promise he showed in qualifying. And as he winds his waist down, well, brilliant result there for Roy Plummer in the Blue Am class. I believe that's his first Blue Am podium in some time. And, well, what a drive from the number 9 in the very colourful livery machine. Runner-up of the Blue Ams with Fraser Rostance as well, finishing ahead of Andy Chell right at the finish there. But Chell kept him honest all the way, and he'll be a bit gutted with how that's played out, given he was fighting so hard to be on that Blue Am podium. But if all the drivers coming towards the checkered flag, well, they make the way into the pit lane. There were some phenomenal performances up and down the order, including, of course, that absolutely brilliant drive for third place in the Blue Prime class from Joe Gibson, who fought his way hard with Dylan Hunter. And Hunter will be gutted to have missed out on the podium, but still to take the fourth place with how everything went, I think he'll also be breathing a sigh of relief, because that could have been far, far worse. But as they all head down into the pit lane, all respect the pit limiter line there, nobody wants to be disqualified from the race after a matter of fact. Well, as they all make the way down, let's take a look at those race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries, ladies and gentlemen, and here they are as we look to the scenic view. So a brilliant opening 20 laps of racing here in round number 9 of season 9 of the NXTCC, brought to you on iRacing and powered by Doble Motorcycles. And Adam Delman, your winner overall and in orange, with the Next Gen Green machine taking victory by 3 seconds over Lee Horn. The Next Gen Pink driver, to be fair, broke away from the field and never looked back, and it was Doble Sim Racing's Isaac Doble who rinsed and repeated the same fact in third place. Luciano Witvoet took full for World of Racing at STR Motorsports, but had to hold off the charges of many a driver behind him, including first and foremost Joe Doble, who came all the way from 12th to finish in 5th place. Well done to the Doble Sim Racing driver there, an absolutely brilliant drive indeed. Alan McCain took Orange Prime honours there with 6th place. Well done to the RS Esports driver, putting one over his teammate Nick Clemens, who finished just behind. There was a further 1.2 seconds to Gavin Gardner for Next Gen Pink, who in the end had to hold off the intentions of Mikey Doble lap after lap, and the Doble Sim Racing driver taking 9th, knowing now that he shed most of the weight, bar 10 kilograms, as he makes his way into race number 2. Piotr Jezlewski took the Blue overall win. There, the Blue Pro driver with 10th place, for Semper Racing, finding himself right in the thick of the fighting, but highly respectful racing there in the number 7 Audi, ahead of Kieran Smart, who was the best of the rest in 11th place for Track Scotland. He took third place in what was the Orange Prime category, just ahead of rival Ben Trier, and the full Tilby Motorsport with boosted motorsport driver will not be upset with 4th place in class, given the fact that he did take 32.5 kilograms of success ballast into this race. Well, to finish 4th there, that's some big points and some very important points, particularly when he considers his two main roles of Lewis Delman and Matthew Addy for Next Gen Green and WSS Racing behind. They were exactly behind him, 1 and 2 places respectively at the checkered flag. Phil McDowell took the Blue Prime win there, 15th overall. Well done to Phil for CXR Project Black in an absolutely brilliant drive to follow up a dominant qualifying session. He was ahead of Conrad Kula, with Benjamin Gregory in 17th place, and then Vrano Esports' Marcel Fritsch taking the orange and win there in 18th, and in good time as well, by only a couple of seconds over Sam Fernals for Goldwyn Motorsports, and a further half a second behind it was Mark Sykes, the runner-up of the orange AM drivers for WSS Racing. And that was your top 20, and as we look further outside the top 20, in 21st place, it was Ben Benneyworth for Quatermass Motorsport, who in the end took none other and the second place in the Blue overall category, or I should say the Blue Pro category. He was in third place of the Blue overall, ahead of Andy Aldhouse, who took the runner-up spot there in the Blue Primes. Well done to Andy, a great podium driver for GBRC. Nigel Stott was just behind him as your Blue Am winner for Crest Autosport, and well done to Nigel there, a win that opens up his championship advantage, and he was ahead of Wayne Douglas, who recovered from the back of the field after what was the drive-through penalty. Michael Lees took 25th ahead of Joe Gibson, who fought hard for third place on the Blue Prime podium, ahead of Dylan Hunter, but between the two was Slavomir Jarvosky, with Roy Plummer 29th there, ran up with the Blue Ams and a brilliant drive for Next Gen Black, and ran off your top 30 was Matthew Cheverton for Aztec Racing. Jamie Toy first took 31st, ahead of Stanley Donaldson, with Fraser Rostens there completing the blue and podium in 3rd place in the class for NXTGEN Black, just ahead of QuakeMS Motorsports' Andy Chell. There was Carl Thompson and William Kurtlew who completed your lead lap finishers. A lap down, we had Lewis Mason, Duncan Wright and Russell Fowler, but with that, all 39 drivers who started the race finished the race, and 36 of them were on the lead lap. And that concludes race number 1 here at the Silverstone National Circuit today, ladies and gentlemen. But don't fret, we've got 2 more races coming up. Up next, of course, is our 20-lap race where they finish race number 1. And what can we expect there up and down the field? Well, we'll find out in due course as we take to a break, not without, of course, a word from our title sponsor this season, and that is Doble Motorcycles. We will see you very shortly, folks. Speaking of Mikey Doble Racing, if you'd like to support Mikey as he pushes it to the limit out on track, you can do so by following the Mikey Doble Racing Facebook page as seen on screen. Additionally, if you want to represent the 88 Army at a BTCC weekend, Mikey Doble Racing has some fantastic merchandise available just for you, as may be found either via the Mikey Doble Racing Facebook page or alternatively in the Doble Motorcycles store at dobledirect.co.uk. Don't miss out on being a part of the 88 Army today. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, for race number 2 of round number 9 of season 9 of the NXTCC, powered by Doble Motorcycles here on iRacing. Silverstone National definitely proved to be a tricky circuit to overtake at in race number 1, but we got to see some absolutely superb battles out there, up and down the field. One driver who was right in the thick of it was none other than Witvoet Plummer, of course. He makes his way across the line, and he enjoyed an absolutely brilliant run to make his way on to the podium in the Blue Am class. In fact, you know what? Let's see if we can get a word with Roy from the car as he makes his way around, and we'll try to grab a word with him as he makes his way on to the Wellington Straight, because just conscious of the fact we don't want to distract him when he's going for a corner. And let's see if we can grab a word with him now. Roy, have you got time for a quick word? Oh, you're very faint, but we'll see what we can do. How did you find it in race number 1? Because that was a brilliant drive to a Blue Am podium. Oh, hold up, ladies and gents. We might be able to fix a slight technical hitch here. Give us a brief moment. Roy, are you still with us? I think, ladies and gents, we might have lost Roy there unless he's managed to get on top of things. Well, Roy, sorry about this. We'll have to leave you to it at the moment, but good luck for race number 2 if you can hear us. Bit unfortunate there, but we'll try and catch you for race number 3, and good luck for this upcoming race. So it didn't quite work out there, ladies and gents. I was trying to catch a word with Roy, but we'll try and catch him a bit later on. Who else can we grab a word with then is the question. Well, I think we can try and grab a word from a driver who did not have quite a happy race number 1, the way it went in the end. But he'll be making his way on down right now, and it's going to be none other than Michael Leese, who I think has been able to get on top of a few things since going racing as he makes his way through there. Ooh, goodness me, well, that's getting a little bit contentious. Let's give him a brief moment just to settle clear of the car there of none other than Matthew Cheverton. I think these two are giving each other a little bit of the elbow, and I think they have calmed down now. So let's try and grab a word with Michael Leese. Michael, you got time for a quick chat?
Sure thing.
Well, a difficult race number 1 after, of course, a qualifying ban as well. You've not had much luck so far today at Silverstone National, but what's keeping you positive?
I made quite a lot of positions up, so I've got a slightly better position on the grid for this race, and I've just got to really hope that something happens in front of me, and that brings my championship rivals towards me, I guess.
Well, definitely an aspiration to have, and like you say, you did make up a lot of places in race number 1. Is there anywhere in particular you're finding you can make the moves happen?
Not really. It just depends on where everybody else or where the people I'm battling are strong or weak on the track. I mean, I seem to be better on the brakes at most places, but it's quite hard to. You know, it's not a very stop-start sort of track, so it's quite hard to. You can't just send one on the brakes safely. So yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult.
Well, difficult, no doubt. But with that, Michael, we're going to leave you to it. Good luck for race number 2, and somehow, hopefully, you can find a way to make it a bit easy.
Hopefully, yeah. Thank you, Paul.
That was Michael Leese, ladies and gentlemen. We just had a word with that. We do apologise for his car blinking in and out. There does seem to be a slight instability on his internet connection. Indeed, he doesn't seem to be having the easiest evening tonight, but hopefully he'll have a bit of ease as things go on. But with that, we're going to stop the interviews there because it is time for us to go racing once again. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for race number 2 here at the Silverstone National Circuit in the United Kingdom. So as our drivers make their way to the grid, this is how they'll line up for our second race of the day. They start when they finish race number 1, and Adam Delman is the one to stand at the top in place number 1 because the next-gen green driver had a brilliant race 1, but now he's got to try and do it all again in race number 2 with 56 kilograms of success burst also going with him. Lee Horn will join him on that front row for next-gen pink. And the Honda Civic Type R driver there will know that with 48 kilograms, it's not going to be an easy feat either. Isaac Doble starts further Double Sim Racing ahead of Luciano Witvoet for World of Racing STR Motorsports. However, the Dutchman will be wary of the fact that around him, there's the entirety of the Doble Sim Racing team, because immediately behind him in 5th is Joe Doble, who showed some brilliant battling nuance there to move from outside the top 10 to well inside the top 5 come the end of race number 1. Alan McCain, he is your pole sitter for the Orange Primes at iRacing Esports. He starts 6th ahead of Nick Clemens, his teammate. Then we do have Gavin Garner completing the 4th row for NXTGEN Pink. Mikey Doble begins this one in 9th, having started 14th in race number 1. A gradual gains there with all that success past, but now he's shed most of the weight and therefore expecting to come roaring up through the ranks. 7th Racing's Piotr Jegowski, the highest placed blue lobby driver. He starts on the blue overall pole in 10th place there. And behind the Polishman, we will see in 11th place, best of the rest, Kieran Smart for Track Scotland. A great result in race number 1. He fought hard for it, and in race number 2, he'll try and do it again. But Ben Altria will keep in close company there, starting 12th for Full Tilt in Motorsport with Boosted Motorsport. Lewis Delmont starts 13th for NXTGEN Green, ahead of Matthew Addy for WSS Racing. And then from the 777 driver, another driver will be fancying his luck to make it 2 wins on the bounce. Phil McDougall for CXR Project Black. He is your blue Pram pole sitter. Conrad Kula starts 16th for Semper Racing, hoping to clear the prime drives around him and move in towards the top 10. If not, then he'll find himself in the clutches of Benjamin Gregory, who starts 17th for Full Tilt in Motorsport with Boosted Motorsport. And then Orange pole sitter is Marcel Fritsch, who after that brilliant win in race number 1, holding off the charge of Mark Sykes, he'll look to try and do it again for Rhino Esports in this race as well. However, along with Mark Sykes on that 10th row of the grid, he'll have to first contend with Sam Van Knowles, who starts 19th for Goldwyn Motorsports, before we do come to Fritsch's main rival of Sykes, who starts 20th for WSS Racing. Outside the top 20 then, on row number 11, it's Ben Benneyworth for Quantum Mass Motorsport and Andy Aldhouse for GBRC. The GBRC driver is the second of our blue Pram drivers on this grid, just ahead of the blue and pole sitter of Nigel Stott for Crest Autosport, who, if he can make it 2 wins out of 2, will be starting to put one hand on the AM title. Wayne Douglas begins this one 24th, a far cry from where he started in race number 1 for NXTGEN Black, but watch out, he'll carve his way through the field. He's ahead of Michael Lees, who we heard from only moments ago, who made a lot of progress in race number 1, albeit he did get upset, but he's taken the confidence that he can make his way through the field in this one as well. Alongside him on the 13th row is Joe Gibson for Goldwyn Motorsports, third of the blue Pram drivers, and he'll be doing battle with the drivers behind him on the 14th row, Samir Javosky being one of them for Semper Racing, and the other being Dylan Hunter for Adapt Sim Racing. And then completing your top 30, it's Roy Plummer for NXTGEN Black, and Matthew Cheverton for Aztec Racing. Outside the top 30, on the 16th row of the grid, it's Jamie Dory for NXTGEN Pink, ahead of Stanley Donaldson for Quantum Mass Motorsport, with Fraser Rostance beginning this one in a third of the blue AM drives for NXTGEN Black, ahead of Andy Chell for Quantum Mass Motorsport. Then Carl Thompson begins at 35th for GBRC, ahead of William Kurtler for Aztec Racing. And on the final full row of the grid, it's Lewis Mason for Aztec Racing and Duncan Rye for Goldwyn Motorsports, with Russell Fowler for Rhino Esports starting 39th, last but not least, and hoping for a much better race number 2. Well, that's how they all line up, ladies and gentlemen. Another 20 laps sit ahead of them. There were jump starts for both Wayne Douglas and Jamie Dory in race number 1, but will there be any jump starts this time, or will they have all got their best behaviour hats on? We will find out very shortly as they all get set to go for the second race here at the Silverstone National Circuit. And without further ado, it's 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4, it's 5, it's fire red lights! And it's lights out and away we go here for race number 2 of round 9 of the championship. Adam Delmont gets a good start, but look to Lee Horn, and what you'll see is that he's had a good start as well as he looks up the inside. 2 wide they enter into the opening corner, but Adam Delmont holds the lead as they all scurry the way out of Cops Bend and now down towards the Maggots Hairpin for the first time of asking. The field scrambles, and as they all come through, all drive safely through the opening bend, which is great to see. 3 wide in the rear of the picture, albeit immediately there Joe Doble backs out before it's too late. Oh, goodness me, that's a tap to the rear of Nick Clemens' car from Gavin Gardner. There's also been a bit of contact, and Alan McCain's been escorted off the road there, and he rejoins in the rear right of your picture, but he's sent all the way down to 15th place. So McCain will have to try and get a replay of what exactly happened to him, so he's not had a happy moment at all. But here comes 4 wide down into Brooklands here, or is that 5 wide? I think it's 5 wide almost there, ladies and gentlemen, albeit they all segue in the end. But Matthew Addy takes 4 places at the price of 1 straight in the braking zone, and Addy's up into 2nd place of the Orange Primes. My good lord, can he get it stopped in time? The answer is no, and Lewis Delmont is trying to come back at him here, but the Audi driver right now, I don't know what he's had to eat since race number 1 or to drink, but he's definitely given him a load of confidence there. And once he comes through Woodcock Bend, he can't quite close the door on the Honda Civic of Lewis Delmont, but he'd love to as they head into lap number 2. And Matthew Addy getting the best start of everybody inside the top 10, or indeed in terms of where he sits inside the top 10, but outside of it going on to this race. And we're right now, the 777 driver here looking to do as much as he can to move forward. Nick Clemens is only target in front of him now for the orange pram lead. But further back, we've had some exchanges, including Ben Benneyworth passing Marcel Fritsch. But look at this, Benneyworth now under pressure from Mark Sykes as they make the way through Maggots. And as they come out to the right-hander, well, that is going to be a lot of pressure here. And in fact, it's side by side between Fritsch and Sykes. Albeit Sykes for a tighter exit line will lose a lot of momentum heading down the Wellington Straight, and in the battle of the Hondas, here comes Nigel Stock, the other AM driver, albeit for the blue lobby, taking a peek up the inside. Can he get involved? The answer is yes, he can. Sykes gives him the space to cooperate, and as they make the way from Brooklands into Lovefield, will Stock in the end on that outside. He's going to have to back off there, as otherwise he's going to be heading towards the gravel. Matthew Cheverton, meanwhile, still battling with Dylan Hunter. Jamie Dory watches behind. Cheverton not too happy about being squeezed to the outside, and that is Dylan Hunter turn to the barrier, and that's huge in the Blue Prime Championship because Dylan Hunter had an open goal today to try and gain some major points of Mike Barber. And right now, that turn into the wall, that puts him all the way to the back of the field. And for Hunter, he's got all the work to do as he brings himself up to speed. Also, we should apologise. We didn't mention the fact that Matthew Jordan started from the very back of the grid. So we actually had 40 cars on this grid, not 39. And Matthew Jordan started very last, but he's already on a charge here up to 38th and moving forward for NXTGEN Pink as they head on through. But as they do, Lewis Mason there takes a quick peek up the inside, but no avail there as Lewis Delmont, meanwhile, has picked up damage. That is going to send him to the pit lane very shortly because he does have the proverbial meatball flag showing towards his car. But at the very front of the field then as they come towards the end of lap number 3, Adam Delmont still leading ahead of Isaac Doble by 1.7 seconds. There is Isaac Doble, and right now he really is the head of the rest of the field with Luciano Witvoet right behind him, then Mikey Doble, then Joe Doble. It is the 3-on-1 situation here with the Doble Sim Racing team trying to get one over the World of Racing with STR Motorsports driver, and Mikey in particular will be very keen to try and make a move here to get ahead of his championship rival. Gavin Garner sits in 6th ahead of Orange Pram leader Matthew Addy in 7th. Ben Altrier is 8th ahead of Kieran Smart. Side by side goes Smart with Lee Horn, and Horn right now has been escorted down the order, and I suspect the success bus in that Honda is definitely now starting to pinch at him a bit as they make the way on towards lap number 4. All bit behind Benjamin Gregory and Peter Jev's Let's go. Oh my good lord, that is a bit too aggressive. That is very aggressive there, and in fact that was a big ding dong moment. I believe that was the Audi of Peter Jev's on the outside that grinded down the left hand side of Benjamin Gregory's Elantra, and on the inside him Conrad Kula tried to go for the dive. It was a reverse Moses manoeuvre, but unlike Moses it was absolutely biblical for the wrong reasons. But as they make the way in towards turn number 4, well that's going to be a look at the inside from Jagoslewski. A much smoother run this time. I think he's tamed himself down as that's not going to be tamed. That's Sam Van Olst escorted off the grass and onto another patch of grass there. I think caught over the front of film at Doble's car. I want to get a replay of that when we can, but definitely the gloves seem to be coming off between drives and they kept it relatively civil in race number 1, but only in race number 2, well, I think the red mist has probably descended and they'll all be reminded to calm it down a little bit after this race. If the stewards are watching, I'm sure they are. And as we have a free wide here down the start finish straight, free wide into Cotton Spen doesn't normally go well. That's a cut across there from Duncan Rye. Decides to cut to the inside line. William Kurtler's turned and will somehow Sam Van Olst avoids getting collected. Russell Fowler avoids that as well. Kurtler goes to the gravel as we see him go for the bottom of the camera. He survives and avoids the barrier, but it is getting very calamitous here as we head our way towards the end of the first quarter of this second race of the day. Matthew John trying to pick up another place here, looking up the inside of none other than Lewis Mason. He's not going to quite find it at the moment, given the fact he's caught up behind Carl Thompson's car. But looking back to the very front, Luciano Witvoet versus Mikey Doble. And well, with Isaac Doble falling behind the pair, well, right now Witvoet trying to break away in second place, but the problem is he's not going to be able to. He does have the entire Doble Sim Racing army right behind him here, as headed by the number 1, previously the number 88, but of course taking the number 1 as overall champion from the previous season. And Mikey Doble right now looking to try and retain that number 1 status as he continues his way deeper and deeper into this round of racing. But the problem will be that Witvoet right now has other ideas and wants to finish one place ahead. And this World of Racing with STR Motorsports Audi is going to become the widest Audi you've ever seen in this race, understandably so, as they make the way on around. But from the right-hander, Maggots, what can he do here in the Audi? And the answer is going to be he can look very quick indeed as he powers his way along. And well, in the draft right now is Mikey, but what's he going to be able to do. He'll look round the outside, and well, this is going to give him an opportunity to get to the inside of Luffield Bend if he can go the distance on the brakes. But what we do know is that Witvoet is no stranger to this move being pulled on him. He's seen it all before, and immediately just puts the car right back on the inside there in towards Luffield Bend and says, what are you going to do? And Mikey says, well, I'm going to give you a little bit of a push here, just a gentle nudge. That will unsettle the rear of the car slightly, and those little nudges, of course, can always play a bit of a factor. They can get away with them so long as it's a light tap. As long as they don't make a recurrence of it in a very quick succession, it's all fair in love and war, or at least in motorsport, as they head in towards turn number 1 right now. Mikey Doble looks one way, then the other. Behind in the battle for the orange prime lead, we can see there Ben Ultrier versus Matthew Addy. They are still very close together. Ultrier trying to hold on, as that's a bit of grass being taken there by Mikey Doble. Coming on towards turns 2 and 3. He's looking every which way now to try and make the move happen. That's not going to work out there, as meanwhile Michael Leese is serving a slowdown penalty, and I believe that's for track limits on the exit of Copse Corner. But Michael Leese has made a long way up the order, and we should give a special mention to him because he started all the way down in 25th place, and well, for a brief moment there he was in 12th. Conrad Cooler's now going to outdrag him, and Leese needs to still burn that time penalty. He's going to have to burn it here coming down to Brooklands Bend, as otherwise that is going to be converted into a drive-through penalty very soon. So they only have about 30 seconds with which to burn that time penalty. Leese then goes very sideways, and well, that he will burn his penalty, but also he'll burn his tyres in doing so. So right idea, but wrong execution. He drops down to 14th as Phil McDougall, the blue pram leader, gets on through as well, and just in time as well, as Leese goes wide, and Marcel Fritsch, the orange am leader, now squeezes his way out the inside. And well, conversely, Mark Sykes is all the way down the order. I think he got caught up in a bit of a calamity with other drivers in the opening stage of this race. But at the front of what is the Blue Pros, we do have Ben Benneyworth, Piotr Jaroslewski and Matthew Cheverton all escorted together here, and well, that means that your Blue Prime driver of Phil McDougall is the overall Blue leader, and well, he's doing very well in 13th place, but these three all concertinaing together here in the fight for 18th, as that's a big lunge there from Jaroslewski, and Matthew Cheverton immediately up the inside. This is an important move for Cheverton, because he wants all the points here in this championship to really wrap things up, or at least try and make sure that Ben Benneyworth can't get any closer, and Cheverton right now are really licking his wounds after Donington Park. And while they make their way along, we ride on board here with the Aztec Racing 390. Better on the brakes is the Honda, but it lacks straight line speed, and that's how the balance performance works between these cars. It's the best on tyres, it's the best on brakes, but it takes a very long time to get into 5th gear, and when it does, it takes even longer time to get to 6th gear compared to the rest of the cars on the running grid. So therefore it's a car which works very well at low speed circuits, but when you do have high speed straights such here at Silverstone National, it does lose out a bit. But Cheverton cuts to the inside here as they head towards Copse Bend. That's going to be Jaroslewski on his left with Benneyworth just in front. Cheverton goes to the move here. Does he get it done? The answer is not quite. They are door to door as they exit the bend, but they show each other a racing room and great respect with it. Well, so you'd love to see that. Cheverton right now does inch ahead here in the second phase of the run up towards Maggots. Onto the brakes he'll go, and I don't think Jaroslewski's going to have an answer. He rubs door panels, and that's going to see Nick Clemens come diving into the scene of the accident, and well, he creates a little bit more of an instant there as that is staggered 4 wide on the exit. Andy Aldhouse now trying to go around the outside to take the inside down the Wellington Straight. 3 wide he goes with Jaroslewski and Nigel Stock. Stock there with him, and onto the brakes they come. Stock right now the blue am leader. He doesn't really want to get too involved in this, and Andy Aldhouse goes out a little bit wide. Stock's forced out wider. Aldhouse holds the place. Here comes Jaroslewski trying to come back in. Andy Aldhouse right now making himself 2 cars wide at the minimum as they make the way on through. Boy, it gets a little bit elbows out between them, but to be fair, absolutely brilliant ding-dong racing. And right now, Andy Aldhouse really embodying Super Taurus spirit. I can tell you that. Jaroslewski and Nigel Stock will be looking and thinking, okay, the gloves have got to come off here, because otherwise they're not going to find their way through. Albeit Jaroslewski has actually got damage on the car, which is going to see him have to come into the pit. So that little knock and tap between the drivers has actually wounded the suspension of Jaroslewski's car enough to require it to come into the pit lane for repair work. And that is very unfortunate, because it was just light taps between them all. But I wonder whether, as he dived under braking into this bend on the previous lap, whether the contact he made with another car's behind actually done more damage than what we noticed. Well, that's a big question that we'll have to get an answer to at some point. But further back, Stanley Donaldson chasing after Lewis Mason, but he's breaking away from Carl Thompson, who is right now 4th place of the Blue Pram drivers, and he'd love to get a bit closer to Donaldson to move onto that podium. Roy Plummer, meanwhile, has got William Kirtler for close company, and Joe Gibson is following him. And once they head up towards Brooklands Bend, no change at the moment. These drivers all staying together. And, well, brilliant battles further down this order. Indeed, the lower order drivers, albeit that's not lower order in terms of the amount of attention they deserve, but the fact where they typically finish overall, they're putting on some great performances, much like our leading drivers, and that's what we love to see in the NXTCC. But with that, we need to take a little bit of a look back in time to how the open laps played out. And this was on lap number 1, Alan McCain versus Nick Clevins under under braking, and was a battle under the brakes. Nick Clemens having a big snap there, and Alan McCain going incredibly sideways. Both drivers have nightmare moments, but Alan McCain having the worst of the two, and ending up going off into the weeds for a brief moment and dropping all the way down the order. We then subsequently had a bit of an incident for Dylan Hunter on lap number 2. And this was Hunter battling with Matthew Cheverton coming out of Luffield Bend. Cheverton on that outside, Hunter coming across, and Cheverton going the other way. The two met in the middle, and Dylan Hunter came with the worst of it, but managed to avoid the barrier, grinded along it, or just about, and then made his way onto the escape road. He'll be very grateful for the fact that did not end up in tears. On lap number 3, this happened to Nick Clibbins coming all the way down in towards turns 2 and 3, with Lewis Delmont on his inside to outside. They went under braking, the two Hondas came together. Oh, and another snap there for Nick Clibbins. That brake bias too far backwards, and in the end, taking Lewis Delmont with him. So that explains why they both fell down the running order quite significantly. And then we did have a further big incident for Joe Gibson on lap number 4. And this is what happens to the Goldwyn Motorsports driver. It was the battle with the number 5 of Andy Chell into Cops Bend. As they made their way out the corner, Chell making contact with Gibson, and Gibson being turned around, and he won't be too happy about that. We also had this for Sam Verdols later on in the lap. Goldwyn Motorsports having a nightmare lap number 4. This was Phil McDougall on his inside, but McDougall got clear, and as they made their way through, Wayne Douglas there into the side of Sam Verdols, and Verdols just being span out onto the grass there. He won't be too happy about that one. And then lastly, ladies and gents, we had a big moment for Mark Sykes, and this was on lap number 6. What exactly happened to Mark Sykes? Well, here it goes in the replay. This will be the last replay we get for now. 3 wide there, Nick Clemens on his inside, and Sykes turned across and into the barriers. He was hidden from camera view, and Mark Sykes' race ending up in arrears there, and that explains why he's all the way at the back of the order. So a very dramatic what was open in 8 laps, and we're back right in time for plenty more fighting. In fact, we had a change overall leader whilst we've been looking at replays. We do apologise for that. We will try and get a replay of it when we can. Mikey Doble now leads this race. Adam Doble and Luciano Witvoet, and our top 3 very, very close together there. And, well, how exactly have they swapped the places is the big question. Well, we'll try and get an answer to that when we can. Because right now, as they make the way down the start-finish straight, in fact, not down the start finish straight, down the Wellington straight, I should say. Mikey Doble here trying to hold on to that win with Luciano Witvoet in a very heavy car by comparison. But Adam Delmont's got the heaviest of them all, and these 3 drivers all over the back of each other as we jump on board with the 3rd place man, and he looks for an opportunity to try and move a bit further forward. Now at this point, if you're Luciano Witvoet, what can you do? Well, you've got to know that your priority is to try and get the best possible traction in this Audi, because you have got the straight line speed compared to the 2 cars in front. However, he's got a lot of weight under braking. He does have the best part of what is 30 kilograms of success bus, and that is not going to help the weight distribution and transfer of the car into the heavier braking zones, particularly here as we head in towards the Maggots hairpin. So as he looks to the outside here, it's the inside initially, but it's effectively the outside of the corner approach. Well, Witvoet here looks for the cutback and trying to bury the throttle in, but understeer just prevents him from getting the nose on around, and Adam Delmont continues to prove himself absolutely wide. But here he goes in the tow. Delmont goes defensive all the way to the inside of the circuit. So Witvoet right now placing his bets, knows he's going to go all the way around the outside if he's going to make this work. But Delmont then moves to the middle of the road and says, I know what you're trying to play. You want to go around the outside of me to get the inside to the next corner. And Whitfoot's there. He has successfully made it. This is brilliant driving from Witvoet. And well, Adam Delmont did everything he could to try and make sure Witvoet wouldn't get there. But they left the door open when he was required to. Mikey Doble will start to pull away from these guys now as they make the way onto lap number 15. And in towards the final quarter of this race, but Luciano Witvoet nose ahead here in towards Cops Bend. Adam Delmont trying now to get back at him on the outside, but I think that's going to be a move that's not going to work out. I think he needs to cut it back there, because with all that weight in the car, the best part of an extra 56 kilograms of success pass, that's only going to force the car to drift wide, and Luciano Witvoet will take 2nd place off Adam Delmont in a brilliant back and forth battle between them. Isaac Doble meanwhile sits in 4th and watches this at a distance, but as we said earlier, we need a replay of how exactly we had Mikey Doble take the lead of this race in the first place, and the answer to that is on your screen now, ladies and gentlemen, as we take a look back. Now this was on lap number 12. Mikey Doble was on the back of Adam Delmont heading in towards Brooklands and Luffield. Went to the outside. I think it might be a rinse and repeat of what we saw any moments ago live for Luciano Witvoet. It was, but Mikey Doble there much earlier, and in fact getting ahead and clear of Adam Delmont on the exit at Luffield Bend for the best part of heading towards Woodcourt, and that explains the difference between the two of them. But as we now come back to your live racing, definitely there some absolutely titanic moves being made by our championship contenders. And looking back to the orange Pro-Am lead as we come back to your live racing on lap 16, Ben Trier still clear of Matthew Addy. In fact, Matthew Addy has fallen away a little bit. Addy holding on to second place in Orange Prime, and I think his mindset is going to be, simply put, make sure you get on that podium if nothing else, because race number 3 is around the corner, and of course we do have the infamous reverse grid, which could play out in his favour depending on where we draw the number from. But as he does make his way on through, he's got Kieran Smart 1.4 seconds behind, and Kieran Smart going under the radar in this one a little bit, and started 11th, and well, in fact he did start towards the very front of what was the Pro-Am runners. Well, he stayed exactly there as he makes his way on through and holding on to a very happy 3rd place in the Orange Prams at the moment, with Lee Horn and Benjamin Gregory not too far behind. Looking back to the Orange Am lead, that's Marcel Fritsch ahead of what is Matthew Jordan, who's still trying to make his way through. Jordan in the rear of the picture for a brief moment, but just in front of him it's your Blue Prime leader of Phil McDougall, who's having an exchange of door panels here with fellow Honda in the form of Nick Clemens is one, albeit not in the same class, and these two drivers right now just fighting for overall position, and knowing that every overall position counts here because it's anywhere between 13th and 23rd we reverse the grid from, so ideally you want to be as high up in this order as possible to guarantee you are going to be in that reverse grid. The lower down you finish, of course, if we do pick a very big number, it gives you a big opportunity, but there's a lesser chance of it being picked, as that's Marcel Fritsch being tapped there. That was contact Ben Benneyworth, albeit both drivers have survived that. Benneyworth latched onto the back of Fritsch again. Andy Aldhouse squeezed on through, and Sonny for Andy Aldhouse. Well, this is a golden opportunity to put pressure on Phil McDougall for the lead of the Blue Prime class. Was to come out to turn number 3. Phil McDougall's going to look in his rearview mirror, and Sonny realised that one of his main rivals is right there with him, and probably asking the question, how on earth did he suddenly get there? And well, if he didn't know, it was the contact with Marcel Fritsch and Ben Benneyworth that Sonny benefited Aldhouse, was able just to sneak his way through. So Phil McDougall now is going to absolutely bring the pace this down and create a train behind him, as Aldhouse takes too much speed through Brooklands, puts him very deep into Luffield Bend, and as a result Marcel Fritsch goes around the outside of him, and Aldhouse had a prime opportunity, squanders it for a brief moment there, a little bit too much enthusiasm, but it's forgivable because at the end of the day he just wanted to try and get as close as possible, and I think he saw if he could put some pressure on McDougall he might have had a chance, but now he's got even more work cut out for himself because he's got to try and get his way back past Marcel Fritsch and Sam Van Os once again. But we will see where he's going to be able to do it, as meanwhile looking back to Isaac Doble, he's been pushed along here by Joe Doble to a degree, albeit not literally, but in the fact that Joe Doble's right there with him, putting some pressure on him. Gavin Gardner is 7 tenths behind, and Ben Altrier, the Orange Pram leader, is keeping Gardner honest, as that is going to be Joe Doble looking up the inside there of his brother. The two of them are going to go into a bit of a battle here, and well, the number 1 rule of racing, of course, is finish ahead of your teammate. Number 2 rule is don't take your teammate out, and that's why I think these two right now are going to calm down that battling, because of course the problem is they've got Gavin Gardner now right on the back of them as we go on to lap number 19. So penultimate lap of this race comes around as quickly as the race has started, and well, from them looking all the way down the order, Cole Thompson here looking up the inside of William Kurtler in towards Brooklands, with none other there than Fraser Roston and Stanley Donaldson having a bit of an exchange in front, but Kurtler goes back to the inside as he heads in towards Luffield Bend, and they return to how they were at the start of the corner complex, but good little ding-dong scrap here between our two blue lobby drivers. But speaking of entertainment, we've got entertainment between Isaac Doble and Joe Doble here. Isaac still defending the inside for what is 4th place, but Joe Doble on the outside there as they make their way down the Wellington Straight, gets the better run off the corner, and also in the lighter car he will naturally pull ahead here given the run he's got. And well, Gavin Gardner and Ben Altrier will be watching this and licking their lips together and thinking, okay, we might be able to pick up place here, as Isaac Doble goes a bit deep, but that will mean now he naturally covers off his rivals behind as Joe Doble gets it wrong. Isaac Doble has to react there, does not realise that Joe Doble's gone deep and has had to swerve back into the circuit, but thankfully for him, Gavin Gardner could not seize an opportunity as the final lap of racing gets underway. White flag is out on the start-finish line, and all of the drivers now heading towards that checker flag next time around. But who in this scrap is going to be finishing 4th? Will it be Joe Doble? Will it be Isaac Doble? Or will it be Gavin Gardner or Ben Altrier? And the leading orange prime driver here doesn't need to really get involved because he is guaranteed the class win wherever he finishes inside this quartet. But I think for him, he just wants to pick up some more overall points if he can help it. We'll see what he's able to do as they all head onto the brakes. Off camera, Wayne Douglas has just moved into 35th place ahead of Andy Chell. So now a place gained there for the next gen black driver. And there's all the drivers coming through here. Absolutely brilliant run, but no real change at this point in time. Sam Van Os battling here with Phil McDougall. He's going to look out the inside. He'll take that place for 18th as McDougall will go a bit deep into the corner. But meanwhile, to the very front of the field for Mikey Doble It's 2 corners and a checkered flag that await him, and well, his championship rival Luciano Witvoet is hot on his heels, whereas Witvoet got the upper hand in race number 1. Mikey Doble will get it all said and done in race number 2 and take a victory here that will help him restabilise his advantage in the championship ahead of Luciano Witvoet, with Adam Delman in 3rd. Joe Doble will take 4th place ahead of Isaac Doble, with Gavin Garnett in 6th. Ben Benneyworth will take another orange pram win there. 2 wins out of 2 so far today, ahead of Kieran Smart, who was as the best part of 3 seconds behind. Matthew Addy just missed out on the run-up spot in the orange pram class, and a brilliant fight with Kieran Smart towards the end. Lee Horn finished 10th ahead of Conrad Kula. Matthew Cheverton takes overall victory in the blue lobby, which is very important to him, given the fact that helps make amends for what happened in race number 1. Phil McDowell will make it back-to-back victories in the blue Pro-Am group in this race, and that is a brilliant job for him. 19th on the road, just ahead of the orange Am winner of Marcel Fritsch, and Andy Aldhouse just behind, making it back-to-back run-up spots in the blue Pro-Am class. A bit further back, Nigel Stock makes it back-to-back blue Am wins there, with 25th on the road. Well done to him. And well, from them, ladies and gentlemen, that about concludes all of our finishers of this race, as Mark Sykes will be the sole finisher to finish a lap down in the end, and we did have the retirements of both Piotr Jegorzelski and Lewis Delmont, and I believe a disqualification from the race for Piotr Jegorzelski in the damaged car, unless I'm mistaken. I might be misreading that, I'm not 100% certain, but I think we did see a disqualification flag come up. But as all drivers make their way into the pit lane, Matthew Addy just missing out versus Kieran Smart right towards the end, and well, let's take a look back at their little battle before we get the race results. Now, this was on the final lap, hand down the Wellington Straight. Kieran Smart had the better run coming out of the Maggots Bend, and the Track Scotland driver on the inside there in the blue Elantra. But Matthew Addy wasn't going to give up there in the WSS Racing Sam Case's machine. They were 2 wide all the way through. So how did Smart get it done is the question. And it was on corner exit. Smart did a brilliant job there, and Addy was quite conservative with his corner exit. I don't think he went to risk drifting wide and contacting Smart, but actually gave Smart the confidence to carry the speed through. And it was practically a photo finish at line, and Kieran Smart took that by only, in the end, 300ths of the line. What a great battle, and Kieran Smart in the end really working against the confidence of Matthew Addy, and it worked to his advantage as we look back to your live pictures, folks. Well, as we do, that concludes our second race, and let's walk you through those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are for race number 2 of round 9 of the NXTCC Season 9 at the Silverstone National Circuit. Mikey Doble then, your winner for Double Sim Racing, moving forward from a 9th place finish in race number 1 to a win in this one, ahead of the man who finished 4th in race number 1, Luciano Witvoet, who takes the run-up spot in this one for World of Racing with STR Motorsports. Adam Delman round off the top 3 there for NXTGEN Green in the success ballast-laden Honda Civic Type R, but 3rd place after the win in race number 1, he'll be absolutely ecstatic about that. Joe Doble held off brother Isaac for 4th, the Double Sim Racing pair being followed up then by Gavin Gardner in 6th, and behind the NXTGEN Pink driver was the Full Tilt Motorsport with Boosted Motorsport driver, who took the orange Pro-Am win of Ben Benneyworth. Well done to him. He held off the attacks of Matthew Addy, and in the end, it was Matthew Addy versus Kieran Smart for the run-up spot in the orange Pro-Am class, and it was Kieran Smart who gained the advantage and took the win right at line for Track Scotland, as we saw just only months ago in the replay. But behind the top 3 of the orange Pro-Am class, we then did see in 10th place Lee Horn for NXTGEN Pink, and best the rest in 11th Conrad Kula for Semper Racing. Benjamin Gregory enjoyed plenty of battling with pro drivers, but not to be on the orange Pro-Am podium. He took 4th in class, 12th on the road. He was ahead of Jamie Dory, with the NXTGEN Pink driver being followed up by JWM's Michael Lees, who delivered exactly what he promised, which was to make up a load of places, and he almost guaranteed himself to be in that reverse grid, and well, he gives himself a very high chance unless number 13 is drawn. Alan McCain took 15th for iRacing Esports ahead of Matthew Cheverton, and behind them we did see in 17th Nick Clemens ahead of Sam Van Olst. Matthew Cheverton, we should give a special mention to, your winner in the blue lobby group overall, and that's some big points there for the Aztec Racing driver, which he definitely needs his championship charge. Phil McDowell took 19th, the blue Pro-Am winner there, back-to-back Pro-Am wins for him for CXR Project Black, ahead of orange Am winner, back-to-back victories for him as well, Marcel Fritsch 20th, and for Rhino Esports, he'll be absolutely ecstatic about that, as will the team. 21st, it was Andy Aldhouse, the runner-up of the blue Pro-Am drivers there for GBRC, not quite able to make the move on Phil McDougall. A bit too much enthusiasm led him astray, but he was ahead of Ben Benneyworth for Quantum Mass Motorsport. Then Duncan Wright and Matthew Jordan and Nigel Stock completed your top 25, with Matthew Jordan being the run-up of the orange Ams. And well, it's from him, it was then to your blue Am winner of Nigel Stock with the Crest Autosport driver there, delivering a brilliant second win of the day. Samuel Jarvosky was 26th, just fended off the attacks of Lewis Mason, with Stanley Donaldson in 28th place. Then we had Fraser Ostens and William Kirtley in their brilliant back and forth battle. They rounded off your top 30. Behind the Aztec Racing driver, it was Carl Thompson. He had a great fight with Joe Gibson, with Roy Plummer missing out and finishing 33rd for Next Gen Black. 3 seconds clear of Dylan Hunter. Then we had Wayne Douglas, Andy Chell and Russell Fowler complete your lead lap finishers. We're lap down to Mark Sykes and non-finishes for Piotr Jazlewski and Lewis Delmont. So 40 starters, ladies and gentlemen, of which 38 finishers, 37 for them on the lead lap. And that concludes our second race of the day here at the Silverstone National Circuit. And we've got one more race to come, of course. And it is our all-important reverse grid race. And another 20 laps will come with it. But the big question is, who exactly is going to be on that front row of the grid? And well, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, as we do cut to the commentary booth, and good evening to you all, and I hope you're all doing well this fine evening. Enjoyed all the racing. I definitely am here in the commentary booth, I can tell you that. Well, as always, we have our lottery bowl here in our hands. We have the numbers 6 through to 12 inside it, and very shortly we're going to close our eyes, shuffle the balls, and do our double draw. And the two numbers we pull out, we'll add them together, and that's exactly where we reverse the grid from. Without further ado, let's get to it. So there's the shuffle. And now let's draw our first ball out of the bowl. And it's going to be, for our first ball of the evening, the number 6. So this is going to be a relatively small reverse grid, ladies and gentlemen. And well, that's a bit of a surprise, it must be said. But what will be joining the number 6 that makes, I believe, only its second appearance this season in all the broadcasts that we've been leading on? Well, let's find out. And as we shuffle the balls and draw the second one out of the bowl, it is going to be at the other end. It's 6 and 9. They join each other together here. It's looking nice. And it is going to be a top 15 reverse grid. And that means Alan McCain will be taken to pole position for the final race of today at Silverstone National. And number 9 makes only its third appearance as well. And I believe for Alan McCain, that is going to be the second time he's benefited from the partial reverse grid. He benefited by being on pole, with the top 21 being inverted in round number 6 at the Silverstone International Circuit. So does Alan McCain have a Silverstone special coming up once again? We'll find out, ladies and gentlemen, in approximately 10 minutes time when we come back to the grid for our final race of the day. Don't go anywhere, you want to miss it. And between then and now, of course, a word from our title sponsor, Doble Motorcycles. Speaking of Mikey Doble Racing, if you'd like to support Mikey as he pushes it to the limit out on track, you can do so by following the Mikey Doble Racing Facebook page as seen on screen. Additionally, if you want to represent the 88 Army at a BTCC weekend, Mikey Doble Racing has some fantastic merchandise available just for you, as may be found either via the Mikey Doble Racing Facebook page or alternatively in the Doble Motorcycles store at dobledirect.co.uk. Don't miss out on being a part of the 88 Army today. And we are back one final time this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let's jump straight back into the action for race 3 of 3 here in round number 9 of season 9 of the NXTCC. Races 1 and 2, we've definitely seen the ante up as the racing has gone on, but race number 3, of course, builds things to a crescendo because we have the reverse grid. And, well, for the first time in NXTCC history, we have had back-to-back reverse grids with the same number. 15th place was drawn only 3 weeks ago, and we're at the Donington Park Grand Prix circuit, and that was a combination of the numbers 7 and 8. And today we've had 15th place by the numbers 6 and 9. And Alan McCain has been the beneficiary for the second time this season, has our orange Pro-Am driver to be the pole sitter, but we've had plenty of shuffling up and down, and it can only intensify the racing for this finale. But whilst we do get set to go racing, well, there's an opportunity for us to catch a quick word with 1 or 2 of our drivers. And in fact, I think we're going to try and grab a word for a driver who's been extremely enthusiastic today. And that is going to be a word with Andy Aldhouse, if we can grab a word with him. He's not currently in the car, but we'll be able to pick a word up for him in the paddock as we get ready to have a chat with him quickly. So give us a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to try and get a word with Andy. Good evening to you, Andy. Have you got time for a quick chat?
Yeah.
Andy, it's been great to watch you race today at both races. You've fallen slightly short of dethroning Phil McDougall from winning in the blue Pro-Am class, but we can't refute your enthusiasm, particularly in race number 2. You're almost there, but just went a little bit too much on the brakes, it would seem. How you been finding it?
I thought I got all nervous on that, didn't I? But yeah, it was all right. It's good. That's quite good races tonight, actually.
Oh, 100%. But what can we expect from you in race number 3? More of the same?
Hopefully I can get past Phil, but we'll see.
Oh, fingers crossed for you. We look forward to seeing you try. But with that, we'll let you settle those pre-race nerves. See you out on the circuit, and good luck for race 3.
Thank you. Cheers.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, very quickly from Andy Aldhouse, just setting himself down before going racing and saying a little bit of nerves there catching him out, but completely understandable indeed. All the drivers trying to rise to the occasion. But speaking of drivers rising to the occasion, let's try and grab a quick word with Ben Benneyworth, who's currently down in the pit lane, I believe. And well, as we do get a patch through to Ben down in the paddock. Ben, you got time for a quick word?
I do, mate. Always got time.
Ben, back-to-back victories so far in the orange Pro-Am class. Even with all the weight in the car, it seems as though that Pro-Am title's getting a little bit closer by the race.
Yeah, it's been a good round so far for myself. That weight is rather nasty though. Race 2 I only had half the weight compared to race 1, and the car just felt so much more alive. Much nicer to drive. But back to the weight from race 1 again now, so have to see how it goes.
Well, back to the heaviness of the car once more, and a top 15 reverse grid as well. Are you happy about that, or do you wish it had worked out a bit differently?
No, I'm not too worried by that. It would have been nice if it had been 10th or so, but 15th is fine, I think.
Oh, fair play, Ben. Well, with that, we'll leave you to it. Good luck for race number 3, and we look forward to seeing if you can make it 3 from 3.
Thank you.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Ben Benneyworth as he's parked up in the pit lane currently. But that's all we've got time for in terms of pre-race conversations with a couple of drivers. We always love to get a word with them. Some of them are a little bit more talkative than others and trying to get their heads down. But understandably, it is time for our final racer day. Who is going to be our final set of winners over the course of Silverstone National? There's only one way we're going to find out, and that is by seeing them go the distance here at the Silverstone National Circuit for another 20 laps. So the drivers make their way onto the grid, and we say hello to the Blue Pro-Am Championship leader, who won't be Championship leader after today, but he'll be on level playing field with Dylan Hunter. He's on holiday. Good evening to you, Mike Barber, in the YouTube chat. Here's how our drivers line up then for the final racer day here in our penultimate round of the championship. Alan McCain takes the top 15 reverse grid pole position for iRacing Esports. That is overall pole and also orange pole and orange Pro-Am pole. He's joined on the front row of the grid by fellow orange Pro-Am driver of Michael Lease. Well, how about that, ladies ladies and gentlemen. He fought his way all the way through from the back of the field in race number 1, and come race number 3, he's starting in second place for JWM. He'll be joined then on the row behind by Jamie Dory for NXTGEN Pink and Benjamin Gregory for Full Tilt Motorsport with Boosted Motorsport. Then on row number 3, it's a pair of Orange Pro drivers. Conrad Cooler is one of them, starting 5th for Semper Racing, and in 6th, it's NXTGEN Pink's Lee Horn. Matthew Addy begins this one in 7th for WSS Racing and knows that he wants to try and make it 3 podiums out of 3, but he would love to take a victory. But the challenge in front of him is, of course, Gregory, Lees and McCain. And behind him, he's got the company, firstly, of Kieran Smart for Track Scotland. And, of course, back-to-back winner in the Orange Pram class. We just spoke to him moments ago. Ben Benneyworth for Full Tilt Motorsport with Boosted Motorsport. Gavin Garner starts this one in 10th place for NXTGEN Pink. He's gone under the radar in race number 2, but race number 1, he was a force to be reckoned with. Isaac Doble, the first of the Doble Sim Racing trio, he starts in 11th, best of the rest, with Joe Doble alongside him on the 6th row of the grid. They had a great little battle towards the end of race number 2. Can we expect more fireworks between them in race number 3, or will they work together once again? Behind them, starting 13th, Adam Delmont for NXTGEN Green, with a heavy Honda that definitely felt very tough to handle in race number 2, but to be fair, he mustered it on a round and managed to keep right on the back of Luciano Witvoet, who starts 14th in this one for World of Racing at STR Motorsports. However, the man he needs to beat, Mikey Doble, starts 15th for Doble Sim Racing, winner of race number 2, and Witvoet will know he needs to keep the number 1 car right behind him for as much as possible. Matthew Cheverton starts 16th, just missing out on the reverse grid pole position. He was a little bit upset in the pit lane, I can tell you, after he heard it was top 15. After he'd intentionally stayed in 16th place, thinking it would have been safer there, but the Aztec Racing driver, in staying in safety, has lost out on a surprise pole position. But the 390 driver will not fret, because you can expect him to fight his way forward. And behind him, giving him encouragement, will be Nick Clearance for iRacing Esports and Goldwyn Motorsports Sam Van Olst. Round number 10, it'll be Phil McDougall, who starts on the blue pram pole position for CXR Project Black, and Marcel Fritsch starts 20th for Rhino Esports as your orange AM pole sitter. Behind them on 21st on the grid, it is going to be Andy Aldhouse of GBRC, who we heard from only moments ago, full of enthusiasm, full of braking potential, and he just needs to try and find a way to steal away a win from Phil McDougall. If not, Ben Benneyworth will be there to steal away a place for him for Quentin Mass Motorsport. On row 12, it's Duncan Rye for Goldwyn Motorsports and Matthew Jordan for NXTGEN Pink, who have a heavier car now. We'll see if we can get a little bit closer to Marcel Fritsch over the distance. If not, Nigel Stott will give him company for Crest Autosport ahead of Slamer Jalvoski for Semper Racing. And then it's Lewis and Mason just behind him for Aztec Racing, who sits directly behind the blue AM pole sitter, and he'll be looking to try and take the AM win at the 3rd time of trying. If not, Stanley Donaldson will give him close company for Quentin Mass Motorsport ahead of Fraser Rostons for NXTGEN Black and William Kurtler for Aztec Racing. Expect sparks to fly in between them for the 3rd time today. Well, Carl Thompson for GBRC starting 31st ahead of Joe Gibson for Goldwyn Motorsports. And it's Ryan Plummer for NXTGEN Black ahead of Dylan Hunter for Adapt Sim Racing, who after 2 challenging races, particularly race number 2, he'll be hoping for a much more straightforward end to today. Wayne Douglas begins 35th for NXTGEN Black ahead of Andy Chell for Quentin Mass Motorsport. And then on the final row, the penultimate row of the grid, I should say, will be Russell Fowler for Rhino Esports and Mark Sykes for WSS Racing. It does seem as though we've lost the driver, ladies and gentlemen, and it'll be Piotr Jezleski who starts 39th for Semper Racing. And we don't quite have all of our 40 runners. We're down to 39 once again. So we lost somebody, but where we've lost someone, we are good to go racing. As the lights go on, it's going to be, without further ado, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red lights. And it's lights out, and away we go here for the final time today at Silverstone National. Alan McCain gets a reasonable start, but Michael Lees gets the better launch, and Hyundai Veloster looks the inside into turn number 1, and as he does so, gets ahead as Benjamin Gregory watches behind. Jamie Dory, meanwhile, comes absolutely charging through in the middle of the pack. He was on a completely different line compared to everyone else, but he's made it work to move into full 4, has he? As they make the way in towards the braking zone for turn number 3. Matthew Addy, they're coming down off the apex curve at turn 2, gets boxed in, Lee Horn up the inside immediately, but Matthew Addy is absolutely going some at the start of this race. That is going to be Andy Aldhouse stepping out very wide there on the run through turns 2 and 3. However, he was being able to bring all that momentum back onto the circuit now as Matthew Jordan is made to sit behind. But roaring from them all the way to the back of the field, Russell Fowler finds himself at a 3 wide. And right now for Fowler, he's got to hold on for dear life here because he's got Wayne Douglas on his inside and Dylan Hunter on his outside. And in the end, both drivers want to try and make the way past him. But Russell Fowler is going to just simply stay in the middle of the road and see how it all pans out. And Dylan Hunter gets up the inside. Nice move from Dylan there. That's a bit of confidence. And it shows you that knock-in race number 2 has not set him back mentally whatsoever. William Kurtler and Andy Chell, well, these two are absolutely inseparable. They go fighting once again. And just in front is Piotr Jezleski as Roy Plummer has had to start from the pit lane due to a technical issue with the car, it would seem. Or in fact, he started a long way back and found his way on through. But after 1 lap, It's still Michael Lees who leads ahead of Alan McCain with Benjamin Gregory in third. Conrad Kula is fourth ahead of Jamie Dory with Lee Horn in sixth ahead of Matthew Addy. Then Gavin Garnett, Ben Benneyworth and Isaac Doble complete your top 10 with Kieran Smart in 11th place right now and really forming a little bit of a proverbial cork in the bottle. And as they roar the way down the Wellington Straight, you can see there that's Joe Doble looking which way, and meanwhile Luciano Witvoet now trying to look up the inside, can't quite find it, and Joe Doble here has one thing he needs to do, and that's to make sure Witvoet does not get through, as that's going to be a lot of smoke going up there. Somebody's got it very wrong. I don't know what's quite gone wrong, but somebody's had a big lock-up, and we'll try and find out what's happened there. I don't think anyone's gone off the circuit. I think there was a lock-up in towards Luffield Bend, so therefore all the drivers are still together, but Adam Delmont has fallen further back here. He's dropped all the way back to 14th place, battling side by side with Whitford, and somehow in all of that scramble, Mikey Doble has fallen back to 16th place as well. It's a bit of a mess here for all of our championship contenders in the overall Orange Championship, and well, for Whitford and Mikey Doble, they'll both be wanting to move forward in very heavy cars as they make the way onto lap number 3. That's 3 wide, and that is going to be Kieran Smart here trying to squeeze his way through. Big lock up there from Whitford. He goes sideways and the braking contact to the rear of them there from Adam Delmont, but they were able to survive it for now, and all these drivers racing fairly but hard, and that's what we want. But Matthew Cheverton here watches everything playing out in front of him and thinks, okay, I don't really need to go any further forward, because going into there is going into the Lion's Den, and he is the leader of the blue class drivers at the moment, or blue lobby drivers it should be said, but Ben Benneyworth is not too far behind, so he will need to think about making some progress, as otherwise he will be at risk of losing out to Benneyworth, and these are big points to Matthew Cheverton. If he can pick up the win overall in the blue lobby group in this race, it would reset the damage done in race number 1, add to his points in race number 2, and he would be well on his way to a championship crown in our season finale in 2 weeks' time. But from everything that's happening further back, look at the top 3. They're bolting away here as we go on to lap number 4, and the rest of the field right now is really headed by Jamie Dory and Matthew Addy, but these two can't settle down, and who wants to be the leader for 4th place? One wants to be the leader at the moment, and then the other, but Conrad Kula says, mind if I play? He gets a very good exit there coming out of turn number 1, and well, they all make contact, they all survive it, and up the inside goes Isaac Doble. That's our opportunity. So there's Gavin Gardner. Tokyo drifts his way into turn number 3. It's getting very, very scrabbly there. Off the road goes Sam Van Olst as well. I think he's been picked up there by Gavin Gardner. He rejoins Gavin Gardner right at the back of the pack. Adam Delmont flashing his lights there. They're all getting a bit bad-tempered in this pack. And once they come into the braking zone here, well, the stewards will be reminding them of driving standards after this race if they don't calm it down. But let's wait and see just how hot-tempered it's going to get. And I think right now Adam Delmont figuring out where his headlights are and flashing them as many times as possible to put drivers off, and also to send some polite Morse code. As they all come through here, Nick Clibbins right in the mix here with Ben Altrier, and Altrier in a very heavy car right now. Back to the race 1 weight as he was talking about, that 32.5 kilograms of success ballast. It's going to feel as though it's a big pinch on the car, and it is going to be tough to drive, no doubt about it, as they roar the way around. And in towards the corners they go, and as they do, these drivers right now absolutely pushing on. And well, I should correct what I said earlier about Ben Altrier being a back-to-back winner today. He didn't pick up the win in race number 1 in Prime. That was Alan McCain. I do apologise there for the error. He finished 4th in the Prime class in race number 1, but took the win in race number 2. But these drivers all making their way around right now, and so far nobody has pulled the trigger on creating an instant. They all seem to be relatively calm and stable. But again, I've said it now, haven't I? And that's the commentator's curse, as Mark Kent gives us an astute analysis. And that, well, as soon as I talk about the fact that we're waiting for an instant to occur, Isaac Doble there in a little bit of a pinch versus Conrad Kula. Well, the two drivers go sideways for a brief moment through Brooklands Bend, but they settle down, and Isaac Doble takes the place. Well, I do think Conrad Kula there may not be too happy about how that's played out. And we have opportunities to come back a little bit later on, as Matthew Addy, meanwhile, he defends on the inside here up towards Cops Bend versus Jamie Dory. These two continue to fight, and it seems though their fighting is not going away. Towards the back of what is this best part of 20 car pack here, that's how long it is. Well, Phil McDougall here battling with Stammer Chavosky, albeit Chavosky looking all over the back of him, and well, up to the inside of him now, going under braking, and well, he's going to go all in, and McDougall lets it go there, knowing that the blue prime lead is the priority here. Nigel Stock, blue AM leader, also watches on, and Dylan Hunter, well, after difficulties of race number 2, is up into 2nd in the blue prime class. This is looking to be a much better run for Dylan Hunter compared to race number 2, and this is what he'll want. And now he wants to try and chase down McDougall and try to get a win out of this, and if he can, well, I can imagine that Mike Barber's going to be sat there Benbenneyworth right now thinking, okay, I know how hard my work's going to be in that season finale. And we'll Stanley Donaldson a bit further back for Quantum Mass Motorsport. He's not really close enough to challenge here, albeit he is trying to hustle, but he's got Lewis Mason and Piotr Zaleski getting in his head a little bit as he has a very poor run there coming out of Luffield Bend. Almost looked as though he missed a gear change coming over the apex, and well, as he now brings himself up to speed, that Audi definitely not feeling too comfortable at the moment for Donaldson. But then again, a small mistake, anybody can make them. That's why he's a prime and not a pro. They're all here to learn. They're not perfectionists just quite yet, but definitely right now needs to sort things out, because otherwise Lewis Mason will be looking to take that place off him sooner rather than later. But with everything happening further down the order, we come back towards inside the top 10. Or shall I say at the bottom end of the top 10, because Matthew Addy right now in 10th place. He's let go versus Jamie Dory, so they finally end up their scrap. Addy Aldhouse, I should point out, did pick up damage in the car, which he has repaired in the pit lane as a result of a prang, which we will try and get a replay of when we can. We'll be cutting away to a replay here. I think we're going to be devoid of all absolutely brilliant racing action. Everyone's staying absolutely tight together, as that was Garen Gardner there, finding that Marcel Fritsch was going to be very inventive with going around the outside of him, and then so using what was the tarmac plus VAT, which is value-added tarmac. And as they roar the way on through, I get the feeling Marcel Fritsch that's going to be the one and only time he's going to use all the runoff area coming out of Brooklands Bend to make a move and get up into 19th place. So Garen Garner definitely felt a bit of an impact there, but coming through into turn number 1, we look back to leaders, and as Michael Lees starts to pull away a little bit, Benjamin Gregory gets past Alan McCain through turn number 2, and now McCain will look to try and come back at him here as they roar the way down the Wellington Straight. We jump aboard the Iris Esports machine. A slowdown penalty for Conrad Cooler has been applied, and he'll have to serve that from 5th. That's going to put him down. But McCain here looks to move in towards the braking zone. However, will he have enough length on the brakes to get this done? And the answer is no, he won't. The car straight lines quite aggressively as Michael Lees there has a huge bout of understeer coming through Brooklands. He gets it together, but even Lees is not afraid was not separated from making mistakes there. And well, it seems like this top 3 right now, it's going to be a question of who's going to be as consistent as it is the fastest in order to bring this result home. Because if Lees makes another mistake like that, he'll be reeled right back into this pack. And that's the delta, the best part of 2 tenths there on the laps. And right now, Benjamin Gregory is looking to be the fastest of this top 3, at least on that lap, but we've still got plenty more laps to come. As we can see, Isaac Doe, we're now starting to pull away a little bit. It does seem as though this top 20 pack is starting to spread a little bit, as we have got a bit of smoke coming up from one of our cars there. Couldn't quite see who that might just be. Some dust and gravel being pulled along, to be fair. But Matthew Cheverton here, this is important. Cheverton is under pressure for the lead of what is the Blue Lobby group, because Wayne Douglas is right there with him, and on the other side is Ben Benneyworth. And Cheverton right now having to try and hold on. We're looking from the rear of the 390 Honda, and that is Wayne Douglas in full view, and then there's Ben Benneyworth now peeling in behind Douglas, as Douglas is going to try and go around the outside here under braking into Brooklands Bend, but Cheverton's just got to stick to his guns, which is be as defensive as possible. Douglas tries to snatch it around the outside, has a little bit of an oversteer moment, and well, he makes contact with Cheverton, but Cheverton just simply keeps the car pointed straight and says no, that's not going to work. Benneyworth behind, well, he'll want to move forward, but Marcel Fritsch and Garen Gardner are right there with him as they make the way through Woodcock Bend, and all these drives pushing onwards. That's a run wide in the rear of the picture there from Stanley Donaldson as he explores the gravel trap, and as the drives head on up, Cheverton still keeping those elbows as wide as humanly possible. He knows he can't afford to lose this position right now, and that's why he's doing everything he can. Benneyworth is the man he needs to beat. Douglas is a bit of a spanner thrown into the conundrum here, and as they make the way down through turns 2 and 3, he'd like Douglas and Benneyworth to really do battle, but understandably, if you're Ben Benneyworth right now, he's playing this clever. He knows he's got a lot of laps, and he knows that Wayne Douglas doesn't have any weight in that Veloster, so therefore he wants Douglas to do the hard work, which is get ahead of Cheverton or have both of them take each other off the road. Either way, it brings Cheverton closer to Benneyworth, and it puts him off canter, and that's going to give him an opportunity. And there goes Douglas up the inside. Now, can Cheverton fight back to the inside into Luffield? No, he can't, so Douglas takes the lead of the Blue Lobby group, and now Ben Benneyworth will have his sights set on the man in front of him who leads the championship, and Benneyworth came into this round the best part of 40 plus points behind. As they head through Woodcock Bend, can he now find a way in? Cheverton, of course, a lot of weight in that 390 Honda as well. That's not going to help him. The Quantum Mass Motorsport car a little bit lighter by comparison as they make the way into the second half of this race. But credit where it's due, both drivers here really trying to work this one out. It is the equivalent of solving a Rubik's Cube at 150 miles an hour in terms of how they're having to think about positioning the cars, and we're right now trying to match up all the colours and get it right is Cheverton, and he's done a brilliant job. But Benneyworth is equaling him here as they come out of the middle portion of this lap. Further back, we also have got a bit of a battle going on between our blue AM leader and our blue Pram leader, as Nigel Stock all over the back of Phil McDougall, and Dylan Hunter is right there. And there's a similar configuration right now. Well, for Dylan Hunter, he will want Nigel Stock to force his way out the inside of the 6R Project Black Honda. It's on the outside of your picture on the left, albeit that's a big side there from Phil. And as he brings the car back, Nigel Stock gets around the outside, and this is what Dylan Hunter will want, because this is going to give him an opportunity now to try and take a look for what will be the win in the blue brand class. And Hunter's so close at this point. Now he's got to get his head down as we jump on board with the Adapt Sim Racing Veloster drive from the US of A, as he looks to the outside. And well, what's he going to do here under braking is the question. Well, you can imagine he's going to have on the right of him Phil McDougall, but there is Phil McDougall, who takes a very tight entry line. That's going to cause him to go deep. Hunter meanwhile goes for the switchback, but he's a bit conservative on the approach on the exit. Understandably there, I think he was worried about the fact if he cut back too soon, he might have clipped the rear of McDougall's car. And therefore Hunter playing it safe, because he knows he's the bigger, well, he's got the bigger points to lose here compared to McDougall. McDougall is not a factor in that championship battle. Hunter meanwhile, with no Mark Barber on the grid, he's on holiday, which does mean that right now every point here is absolutely precious, and he can't afford to lose a single one. That's why he takes a look up the inside, just tries to get into the head of McDougall's driving style. That's not going to work out, and indeed in the end upsets himself a little bit, but he will try and get back in there. He does have a 1.6 second gap to Stanley Donaldson, so therefore he can afford to throw a couple of these dummy moves, because Donaldson is not close enough really to seize on any missed opportunities for Hunter. Further back, Carl Thompson and Andy Chell. We're enjoying a little bit of a ding-dong scrap here. It will be Andy Chell minus a front bumper, it would seem, on that Audi, or at least one that's been heavily blackened. And I would imagine that is because some of the covering there has come off of the car. And whilst they make their way onwards, Thompson right now trying to hold on to 30th place, but Chell looking right up the inside as they head in towards turn at number 1. And that's going to be a switch of the places there. And now Thompson's going to try and come back at him. But all the way from there, back to the very front, there's Michael Lees, there's Benjamin Gregory, and then Alan McCain. Your top 3 still well clear of the rest, but Isaac Doble is closing little by little, despite the weight in the car. The pro driver is gradually pulling towards the top 3, so it's not over yet to see potentially a double sim racing driver on the overall podium here. But he's got to go some, because it's a 2-second gap to Alan McCain, and 2 seconds takes a long time to close down around here, given the length of the lap. 5th place battle, Jamie Dory still holding off Luciano Witvoet at the moment, with Conrad Kula, Adam Delwin and Lee Horn all queuing up behind him. And we're heading in towards turn number 1 this time around. These drivers all close together. But from them, Matthew Addy, where he was battling with Jamie Dory earlier on, now he's still battling with Joe Doble. Albeit he'd like to battle with Nick Clippers ideally, because that's a place in the Orange Pram class that you can go for. But Joe Doble now has a problem. Wayne Douglas is trying to pick his way through. And Douglas looking up the inside here into turn number 3. Joe, meanwhile, is going to put the car hard on the brakes, but it's going to be a rubber the door panels there between the 2 Velosters. And Ben Altrier is close, but not quite close enough to get involved. So he plays a bit of a watching game. Kieran Smart right behind here for Track Scotland as well, also having to play the game of observer rather than attacker as they head into that braking zone. Well, you can see Altrier so close in the full tilt motorsport car at the moment. He'd love to go for it, but it's not going to come quite forward at this time. Matthew Jordan, meanwhile, he's enjoying a bit of a scrap with Sam Van Nolst. These two side by side heading through Brooklands into Luffield, but Van Nolst was on the outside initially, now finds himself on the inside, and Jordan, I think, is going to run out of space to work with here. He finds the gravel, and that's a bit cheeky, and they come together. And well, Sam Van Nolst there, I think, was hoping that Matthew Jordan would back out, but in the end, Matthew Jordan kept his foot pinned and decided, no, I'm not going to be made to back out of this. And well, Sam Van Nolst comes off the worst of the 2, but I can imagine there's going to be a bit of a conversation between the 2 after the race as to who is in the right and who is in the wrong, and I wouldn't be surprised if that goes to the stewards. From them, Lewis Mason, he's on the back of Andy Chell, and for Lewis Mason right now, this is not the result he wanted to be working towards. A 3rd place in the blue AM class is nowhere near Nigel Stock, who has the prospect of now making it 3 AM wins out of 3 in the blue lobby today, and if he does so, well, for Nigel Stock, it will become a formality at Brands Hatch's Grand Prix circuit. He would need to essentially have the worst races of his season in order to lose out, and Lewis Mason would need perfection. And well, Chell fighting absolutely hard to be on the podium there, and he doesn't have to give way to Lewis Mason, to be fair to him. Chell would love to be on that podium and pick up some big points in his own Blue Am Championship campaign, as Carl Thompson segues his way between the 2 of them, and Mason plays it smart here, just pulls off to the racing line and says, okay, I'm just going to watch what you 2 do and then try and get involved again. was Andy Chell and Carl Thompson. They've definitely been joined at the hip over this race distance. Thompson goes around the outside. That's brave from Carl Thompson, but he makes it work there. And well, as he makes his way on out, I'm getting recollections here of a Honda driver, the Super Touring era of Peter Cox, who was very aggressive like that as well. And well, in the end, Carl Thompson takes his own aggression and goes to the gravel with it, and Lewis Mason gets back ahead. But as they head up towards turn number 1, not long left in this race, and we still have the best part of what will be 4 laps plus the one they're currently on. Michael Lee still leading. Benjamin Gregory, meanwhile, well, right now he's having to settle for second. He's having some connectivity issues as well. Hopefully that's not the sign of something to come with regards to the car and the state of its engine. But Alan McCain, he'll be watching this and thinking, well, where exactly do I place the car when I don't know where he's going to be? Alan McCain runs a bit wide out there, and Isaac Doble is now only a second behind. So Isaac is now within the slipstream range. He will gain a little bit more as he comes to the end of this lap, and Isaac Doble's pace is definitely building. He was half a second faster than Alan McCain on that lap, and 3/10 faster by comparison with Benjamin Gregory. In fact, more than that, he was the best part of almost a second faster than Alan McCain, and half a second quicker than Benjamin Gregory, and even 2 cents faster than Michael Lees. Well, if he had plenty more laps, I think he would be there with Lees. I don't think that's going to work out, but what could work out here is he could have a shot of 3rd place, as Luciano Witvoet and Jamie Dory are still there together. But going back to one of the biggest stories in this running order, Matthew Cheverton in 17th place still has Ben Benneyworth right behind him. For Cheverton right now, it has been 10 laps of this non-stop trying to keep Ben Benneyworth at bay. He's done it enough so far, but he's got this plus another 3 to go. And well, if he's able to hold this on, then for Cheverton it would mean at Brands Hatch that he would have an increased points advantage over Ben Benneyworth, and suddenly the pressure would be on Ben Benneyworth to try and make perfection happen at the Kent Countryside Circuit. Meanwhile, Cheverton would just need to pick up some points to guarantee his championship crown. Coming out to turn number 5, well, Marcel Fritsch is right there, as is Matthew Jordan. So the orange AM lead battle is getting onto the back of what is the championship battle for blue overall honours. So these drivers right now all started the concertina together a little bit here, and Marcel Fritsch will want them to hurry up in front because Matthew Jordan is mounting an absolutely huge amount of pressure as they come onto the 18th lap. And well, with the one thing with Matthew Jordan is the longer he's out on circuit, the faster he becomes. He just has this natural knack of delivering some absolutely staggering lap times. Despite his relative inexperience, it seems as though he gets very comfortable very quickly, as that's contact between Fritsch and Benneyworth. Benneyworth out of sorts there, and Fritsch went in for quite deep. And well, that's going to give Cheverton a little bit of breathing room here. Now Marcel Fritsch will be trying to make his way around the outside of the Quatermass Motorsport Audi RS3. Ben Benneyworth will not be too happy about this because he'll now know he's having to look rearwards rather than forwards. He doesn't need this, but Marcel Fritsch right now needs to get through as Matthew Jordan is all over the back of him. We ride on board here with the number 86 NXTGEN Pink Honda, and once they make the way towards the end of this lap to go on to lap number 19, you can see how close he is. Slamer Javosky and Dylan Hunter also right on the back as well. So this group is getting very tight together. As fastest lap of the race set by Wayne Douglas for 1 minute 0.380. So there's plenty of pace out on the circuit, but it's the battling that is depriving our drivers of all the pace, as Jordan there gets an absolutely huge run into Cops Bend, takes all the apex curb with him. But the problem is that with Marcel Fritsch getting a poor run, he has to back off there. Obviously, he'd rear end his rival. That's the last thing he wants to do there. Otherwise, he'll be sent to the steward's room pretty soon after the racing. We're coming through the right-hander, still right on the back there of Fritsch's Honda, and coming out of the corner, no way through. And Marcel Fritsch, meanwhile, being pinned by Benneyworth's car, and Matthew Cheverton once again now having to go fully defensive. But from them, so a bit further up the road, that's Matthew Addy diving up the inside of Ben Altria as they fight over 5th place in the Orange Prime category. And well, through Luffield they go, and Altria not giving up here. He's absolutely fighting for this. Every point matters, and he wants to make sure that Addy doesn't gain any ground on him in the championship. Kieran Smart watches from behind. They're too wide here coming through Woodcock Corner. Brilliant fight between these two long-established rivals on the grid. Their rivalry dates all the way back to Season 3 of the NXTCC. So they've had the best part of 2 years for this rivalry to mature, and it's at its peak as they make the way through Cops Bend for the final time today. But as they do, meanwhile, change for 3rd place. Isaac Doble at the inside of Alan McCain here with Benjamin Gregory right in front. There's a bit of contact there. Benjamin Gregory's turned sideways. He goes to the gravel. 3 wide as they come on down. Benjamin Gregory briefly disappears and reappears. Our leader has run away. He's bolted out the stables, Michael Lees. Understand with all the fighting. McCain's going to go defense on the inside of Gregory around the outside. Was there contact or not? I don't know. That's going to send him sideways. Isaac Doble comes up for him. Benjamin Gregory is going to drop all the way down as he's sent sideways even more. His race into the rears. But meanwhile, for Michael Lees, what a turnaround it's going to be. He's going to take the Orange Prime win and also the overall win here at Silverstone in race number 3. Well done to him ahead of Alan McCain, who holds on to the run-up spot ahead of Isaac Doble, with Luciano Witvoet and Jamie Dory completing your top 5. Benjamin Gregory comes home with a consolatory 6th place ahead of Adam Devlin and Lee Horn. Mikey Doble and Nick Clemens complete your top 10. Wayne Douglas is your Blue Lobby overall winner, and Matthew Cheverton does hold off Ben Benneyworth there for 17th place. Benneyworth has to take 18th in the end, and then it was with your blue and win, no, orange and win, I should say. Marcel Fritz just ahead of Matthew Jordan, Slamir Javosky between them. Dylan Hunter did find his way through to the orange, well, not the orange, the blue prime win in the end, as I get my lobbies in the correct order. Apologies for that, ladies and gentlemen. With Nigel Stott between himself and Phil McDougall, and Nigel Stott taking 3 out of 3 blue and wins today. A brilliant set of performances from him. And, well, a bit further back, we also did see a great performance there from Stanley Donaldson to take 3rd place in the blue Pro-Am class. But let's get a replay of how Dylan Hunter took the lead off of Phil McDougall for the blue prime win, and here's the replay to explain. It was on lap number 13. How it happened, well, it was a drag race down the Wellington Straight, and Dylan Hunter was right at the inside here as they made the way in towards Brooklands Bend. But was it as straightforward as one apex? The answer was yes, it was, and McDougall did not have enough in the end to try and come back at him. He looked for the cut back, but by the time they got to Luffield, Dylan Hunter had done it, and that means he makes amends for what happened in race number 2, and suddenly brings on home a very important win that will make him the Blue Pram Championship leader going into the season finale. But as we return to your live racing, ladies and gentlemen, plenty of stories up and down this grid. We've tried to cover them as best as we possibly can. There's been so many great battles here at Silverstone in all 3 races. And well, as Roy Plummer makes his way on down the pit lane, let's take a look at those race results subject to any Stewards inquiries. And here they are for our final race of the day in round number 9 of the championship. Well, Silverstone National definitely delivered, and for Michael Lees, he absolutely put on a stellar performance to take victory in this final race of the day for JW Motorsport. That's overall victory in both the every category, also the orange lobby category, and it is a victory in the orange prams as well. So that's going to be 3 trophies heading his way. Congratulations to Michael Lees, head of iRace Esports' Alan McCain, who was the runner-up. Isaac Doble took 3rd place for Doble Sim Racing, only a 10th behind, and 6 tenths clear of Luciano Witvoet, who fought hard there for 4th place, and some big points back on the board for the World of Racing with STR Motorsports driver. Jamie Dory took 5th for NXTGEN Pink, head of Benjamin Gregory, who rounded off the top 3 for the Orange Prams, but would be gutted to miss out on an overall podium after that late contact. But the full Tilby Motorsport with boosted Motorsport driver will know that it could have been far, far worse. Adam Delmont took 7th for NXTGEN Green, ahead of sister team driver for NXTGEN Pink of Lee Horn, with Mikey Doble in the end finishing 9th once again, much like his race 1 result, and not quite able to move forward there with all the weight in the car for Doble Sim Racing, and that'll be a little bit frustrating because he'll know he hasn't quite been able to make a capitalisation on that win from race number 2. Nick Clemens took 10th place for iRace Esports there, ahead of Wayne Douglas, who was your Blue Lobby overall winner for NXTGEN Black, fighting his way through the field. Conrad Cooler 12th ahead of Joe Doble, and a brilliant scrap between them, but in the end Conrad Cooler got the upper hand, and Matthew Addy meanwhile took 5th place in the orange prams there for WSS Racing, just ahead of both Ben Altrier and Kieran Smart. Matthew Cheverton, a very important result for him there. 2nd place in the Blue Lobby overall and the Blue Pros. And importantly for the Aztec Racing driver, ahead of Ben Benneyworth for Quantum Mass Motorsport, who was right behind him at the checker flag. Marcel Fritz took 19th, and with it the orange and win to make it 3 orange and wins out of 3 today for Rhino Esports. Well done to him. And behind the Austrian driver, it was the Polishman Slamir Javosky who completed your top 20. 21st, it was Matthew Jordan, and run-up in the Orange Am category for NXTGEN Pink will be gutted to have missed out on the win, but he definitely did an absolutely superb job of the drive. And then we did see Dylan Hunter in 22nd place there for Adapt Sim Racing, and with that 22nd place, your winner in the Blue Pram class. And well done to him for that one, because he had to fight hard for it, despite the pressure from Stanley Donaldson and also from Phil McDougall. But between the 2 drivers we just mentioned, Nigel Stock there was 23rd, your Blue Am winner for Crest Autosport. An absolutely brilliant effort from him, and he'll be absolutely happy with that. And then we did see Fraser Rosson's 26th, 2nd place of the Blue Am drivers. Well done to Fraser on another Blue Am podium. He's starting to make a habit of those, and it's good to see for NXTGEN Black, head of Sam Van Olst, with Mark Sykes there, 3rd place in the Orange Am Class 9 today. Has not quite been his day, despite a great race 1 result. From the WSS Racing drivers, then Lewis Mason and Carl Thompson who completed your top 30, with Andy Chell 31st ahead of Piotr Jegorlewski, and then Roy Plummer 33rd, holding off the intentions of Aztec Racing's William Kurtler, with then it being a lap down to Andy Aldhouse for GBRC. And to explain to Mike Barber there in the YouTube chat as to what happened to Andy Aldhouse, he picked up significant damage in the early stage of the race and was required to come into the pit lane to get it repaired. He picked up a meatball flag. We didn't quite see what triggered the damage, but we do know he made contact with another driver, and as a result, that relegated him all the way down to be a lap behind finisher. Unfortunately, it was 5 laps down there for Gavin Garner due to damage picked up midway through the race, but he's still classified as a finisher for Next Gen Pink, and we did have the retirements of Duncan Rye, Russell Fowler and Joe Gibson. So 39 starters, but in the end 36 finishers, of which 34 on the lead lap, ladies and gentlemen. And that brings our 3 races here for round number 9 of the championship to a close at the home of British Motorsport. But it doesn't bring our broadcast to a close, because we're going to get ready now for post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. Don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen, because those interviews are coming up in less than 10 minutes time, and you won't want to miss them. We will see you very shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for post-round interviews, and we have got an eclectic mix of volunteers this evening. We're going to be hearing from 2 drivers from the blue lobby and 1 from the orange lobby, and we're going to start off with a driver who got plenty of camera time, particularly in races 1 and 2, Andy Cheverton for Quatermass Motorsport, who was right in the thick of it before coming to our race 3 winner, Michael Elise, from the orange Pram class, and then we'll be going back to the blue lobby for the Pram classes race 3 winner. And that was Dylan Hunter for Adapt Sim Racing, and talking about him overcoming the adversity of races 1 and 2 this evening. But coming to our main man of the hour, he joins me now in the interview room. It's none other than Andy Cheverton for Quatermass Motorsport. Andy, good evening to you, and what an evening of fun you've had. I mean, in all 3 races, I think you were battling left, right, centre, back and forth. I mean, I don't think we knew where you finished in half the races until we saw the statistics, but I don't think you even minded that, because you were right in the thick of the fighting.
No, Paul, matey. It's been one of them evenings to, and he said weekends then. One of them evenings tonight. But yeah, race. Yeah, there's one bit of annoyance in race 2, but it is what it is. But yeah, it's been one of them nights now where there's been a battle the entirety of every race. So yeah, it's been a bit of fun tonight.
Oh, 100%. Plenty of fun. And breaking it down to bits, I think by the sounds of things, you'll probably need a weekend to recover from it. Thankfully, we've got 2 weeks before we go to our season finale. But qualifying firstly, right in the mix, 35th on the grid, 5th in class. But to be fair, a small circuit, a top 35 that was separated by less than a second. I mean, you must have thought to yourself, you know what? It doesn't matter where I qualify, it'll be in the race that matters the most.
Yeah, exactly. We were discussing this as a team before we came in, and when you see how close everybody is, it's similar to how we were at Knock Hill, where it's not tenths of a second that are making a difference; it's hundredths of a second. You miss your braking point a little bit, or you're a little too early on the brakes, and it could be 10, well, not 10 positions, but difference between, like I said, 35th and 30th. So yeah, it was one of them with qualifying. We knew it was going to be tough, as you say, short track. The Audi doesn't like twisty bits, but it makes up for it in the straights. So we weren't 100% sure where we'd sit, because again, twisty tracks is usually a bit like it was in Knock Hill. It's kind of the Veloster or the Civic that kind of suit them tracks a bit more. So yeah, it was one of them. But yeah, like you say, it was very much see what we get in qualifying, and the race is where the points are scored at the end of the day. So that's what we were focusing on.
Oh, 100%. Well, going into the race then, race number 1, finished 4th, 34th place overall. It was a brilliant race number 1 for yourself, though, for the fact you spent the majority of it battling absolutely hard with the likes of Fraser Ostens and also, to a little bit of a lesser extent, Carl Thompson. Something tells me you're a bit gutted, perhaps, to miss out on the AM podium with Fraser just taking it off of you at the end.
Honestly, I wasn't even looking at that, to be honest with you. So we had a game plan. Me and Stan, because we started side by side, and Dylan, who's Mike's rival, was ahead of us, and with Matt starting in the pit lane, we were playing rear gunner for them, the 2 of our other teammates that are in the championship. So we were, firstly, get ahead of Dylan and keep him behind us, because that's going to lessen the impact that he's going to have on Mike's championship, to give Mike at least a chance in the final round. And the other idea was, we've got to keep Matt behind us as long as we can. We know we're not going to keep him behind us forever, because he's a very quick driver, but we need to give Ben as much of a chance as he can to get as far away as he can to get them vital points that he needs to try and catch up. And that was our game plan, to be honest with you. So it may have been a bit of one of them where it caused maybe a little bit of frustration for those 2 drivers, but at the end of the day, it's a team game, and you've got to play it. So that's what me and Stanley were doing. We had a brilliant fight with Matt until he got past us, and then he disappeared. And again, with Dylan, we had some brilliant fights. Like I say, I wasn't focusing on my position. I've got what I want to do in the championship, which is finish 4th or 5th. Those are the 2 guys ahead of me. And both of them weren't here tonight for whatever reason. So for me, it was very much, yes, get as many points as possible. But like I say, it's a team game, and we've got two guys that are in championship fights that we're protecting. So that was what both me and Stanley were looking at in race 1, to be honest with you. So I'll be honest, I didn't even realise where I finished. So.
Oh, goodness me. Well, I do love the team play aspect there, really focusing on the bigger picture of your teammates' championships before your own. And we're going into race number 2, of course. At that point now, the grid has been shuffled a little bit. We're going to another race, and in this one, looking much the same until it went a little bit wrong midway through.
Yeah, I mean, I won't lie. That's still a point of contention for me. I've watched it back. Probably is a racing incident, but I think it's one of them where if the pro car had thought about it, probably not the best place to send it, especially given how we go through that through maggots. It's one of them. But you know, it happens in racing, and it was just one of them where it was like, right, okay, that's happened. Need to get back on it, and then again saw Dylan behind me and was like, right, you're not coming past me. we were just joking about it in the cool down room, and he was like, yeah, it was fun, respectful racing. We had a laugh between us, but it was very much, nah, yeah, it's very much, if I can keep you behind me again, I'm looking after Mike's championship. And Dylan was like, yeah, I see how you do. I see what you're doing there. So yeah, we had a good battle, but it was again very much that team game of limit the effect that happens for Mike. So yeah.
Well, a fair team game, and enjoying the good battle with Dylan, who we'll hear from a bit later, folks. But coming into race number 3 then, much the same as race 1, albeit minus a front bumper in your Audi midway through the race. But again, right in the thick of the fighting, another 4th place. I suspect there was still the focus of the team's championship, but a solid race to wrap up the day.
Yeah, so this one was a little different because Dylan got away really well at the start. So trying to catch him down, and then me and Mark Sykes were running close together because we're in different categories. He's orange, I'm blue. I was like, well, he is going to be quicker than me, so I'll let him through on the pit straights. He was flashing say hello. I think it confused him when I pulled over to let him through and then tucked him back behind him. But because I knew I got the damage from the contact with one of the Aztec cars, I was like, there's no point slowing Mark down, and if he's in front of me, that's going to lessen the aerodynamic drag issue that I've got with the front end being missing. So that was a bit of tactical play, and then he got away from me a bit, but it helped me out. To be honest, I was saying to the guys, the 3rd race flew by for me. And then towards the end, I think it was because me and Lewis were battling, to be honest with you. I think that was like 5-6 laps towards the end we were battling. And that again was great fight, but because I knew I got the damage when he got alongside me down Wellington, I knew I could have done something silly and sent it and maybe made it stick into Luffield, but it was one of them where it's like, I can do this, but 4th place is still good. It's still good points for me, and it gets me what I'm aiming for, which is to start catching on Sean Doby. So that was, like I said, that was the thinking there after Dylan disappeared. I know Stanley was still trying to get him, and he was fighting really hard to get him. So again, the plan was still going, but I wasn't as much of it in race 3 as Stanley was. So yeah, and that was that really. It was a really good fun race that like I say was full of battles, like we said. But in the end, 4th place is still good points, and that's how it runs sometimes.
Oh, 100% good points earned, and also helping out your teammate as much as possible, and that team game playing out. And it sets us up very nicely then for a season finale from yourself, because looking at the provisional championship standings, you've moved into 5th in the Blue Am Championship on 283 points. You're 5 behind Sean Doby, who wasn't on the grid today, nor was Thomas Delaney, who sits the best part of a further, if my maths is correct, 31 points up the road from you. So in theory, if neither of them on the grid, there is still a theoretical opportunity. You could take 3rd, but you're almost, well, you are practically guaranteed to be in the top 5 now. So does it mean at Brands Hatch it's all the team game, or are you going to be trying to perhaps leap your way into 3rd at the end?
It'll depend if Sean's there, to be honest. Like I say, I was targeting 4th. If 3rd's on the table, and I get it, great. But it will depend for me if Sean's there. I've got commitments earlier in Tuesday as well for the last race of the season, so I'm going to be looking at, will I make the start of the race based off the other race, and it'll be a bit of a weighing up of, okay, do we drop out of this one and jump into yours, which I think is probably going to happen because I want to see this championship to the end. So unfortunately, the joys of being the team boss. Yeah, so that'll be an interesting, because it's the second round of another championship that we're running in. So it might be one that I can just, I sacrifice, to be honest with you. Because again, like I said, we've really had a good fun racing this one. But yeah, I think that's going to determine how I come into the race. Will determine on is Sean there? Because if Sean's not in, then I don't have to focus so much on somebody on track to target. I can just think, right, okay, this is the plan. This is who, if they're behind me, I need to keep behind me. If not, this is who I have to try and chase down. So, for example, Dylan, we're usually close by. The Pro-Am and the Am category in blue is quite close. So, again, qualifying is going to be the teller, really, to be honest. But, again, yeah, if it comes down to it, I will put my championship aside and focus on what I can do to help the guys out. So, and same for Stanley. Stanley said the same. So if we can help Mike and Ben out, we will. That's how we run it. Quatermass, we are very much team first, because let's be honest, there's no individual greater than anyone else in the team. So it is very much a team comes first, and if we do well out of that, then great. But yeah, so we'll see. But in a long roundabout way of saying, probably going to put the team first, but we will see on the day.
Well, we look forward to seeing how that all pans out when we do get to Brands Hatch 2 weeks from now, Andy. But thank you for giving us the overview of the logic behind the team. It's so interesting to hear where a lot of our drivers, of course, perhaps put themselves a little bit more first compared to the team. It really is a team spirit at Quatermass. But with that, and just before I do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Yeah, first and foremost, as always, thank you to you, mate. You do a stellar job with these broadcasts, so thank you very much. To the NXTGEN admins behind the scenes that work extremely hard to get these all put together. I know it's been an extremely mammoth task this season, so really do want to say we appreciate all of them at Quatermass doing it for us. Obviously, to Ben and Stanley, you've done brilliantly tonight. Ben's done what he needed to do. He's finished, I think, podium every race, so he's done exactly what he needed to do. And Stanley's played the team game perfectly. So great for them, brilliant. Everyone else at the back end of Quatermass, thank you so much for supporting us and letting us get out on track. Our sponsors who, let us go racing, and then to the fans, thank you very much for coming and watching, guys. We appreciate it.
Well, Andy, we do have to give a big thank you to you, as always, for offering up your time to join me in the interview room. And it's been great to hear from you with regards to your racing over this evening at the Silverstone Circuit. 3 fantastic races right in the thick of it, each and every one. And we look forward to plenty more from you and the Quatermass Motorsport team in our season finale at Brands Hatch's Grand Prix Circuit. But until then, my friend, have a great rest of your evening, and we will see you in 2 weeks' time.
You will do, mate. Thank you very much.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Andy Chell for Quatermass Motorsport, who today, the priority was first and foremost the performances of his teammates, and particularly for Ben Benneyworth there, trying to do everything that they could in order to give Ben an opportunity to really make sure he can close the gap to Matthew Cheverton in the Blue Overall Championship, and also to enable what would be Mike Barber to try and stay as close as possible to Dylan Hunter. Mike, of course, absent this evening, but Dylan Hunter starting behind a good number of Quatermass Motorsport drivers, and therefore having to fight his way through. And already talking with Andy about that in the interview cool-down room, which they're sat in just opposite me at the moment. And we're interested to hear the perspective of the team, and also Andy getting stuck into the fighting and knowing that he can battle with everyone. And in the end, not really knowing where he's finished in the racing class until only after he's actually looked at the results or been told about them, as we mentioned the race 1 result there. And that goes to show you that he's putting the team up before himself and absolutely enjoying the fighting and right in the thick of the NXTCC, and that's the great thing. Some evenings, if you get stuck into the scraps, enjoy those scraps. It doesn't matter where you finish, as long as you've had a good time, and Andy really embodying that, as he's already achieved, or almost achieved, what he wants to do in the Blue Am Championship, which is to be in that top 5, but ideally 4th, and he's on course for that as well, depending on whether Sean Doble and also Thomas Delaney are on the grid at Brands Hatch. So there's so many questions for Quantum Motorsport as a whole, and also so many questions for Andy Chell's championship, and that's why the season finale is definitely going to be an exciting one for him and the team. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we now come on to our second interview of the day. We just heard from Quantum Motorsports Andy Chell, and now we're going to go to the orange class, and we're going to be hearing from none other than Michael Elise, who now joins me in the interview room. So he joins me now. Good evening to you, Michael, and well, what a round of racing for yourself. I mean, we spoke to you earlier on, and it had been a very mixed evening, but now you've ended it on a high with not just a Pro-Am class win, but the overall win as well. I mean, it must feel as though it has been the biggest turnaround of fortunes today.
Well, I gotta say, when I started the event today, I definitely didn't expect to be winning any of the races outright. Yeah, I basically had to do it though, like to keep the championship in some kind of a live condition, because, you know, Ben's starting to creep away with it, and there's only one round left, so I had to give it everything. So yeah, pleased with the end of it, not so pleased with the way it all started, but yeah, good.
Well, like you say, keeping the championship well and truly alive. Provisionally now, you do fall to what is, I believe, 28 points behind Ben Altrier, but there's still plenty of points to be played for Brands Hatch. So coming into this evening, then, something tells me the theme was that you wanted to try and do as much as possible to reel that gap in. So I can imagine with the qualifying ban, that didn't quite help.
Yeah, I mean, once I knew that was on the cards, I was like, you know, is that the championship over? And it felt like it was in a way, but then I was like, well, you know, you can't give up, so you're just gonna have to do everything you can, gain as many places as you can through each race, and just try and get somewhere near the front, and you know, not lose too many points, or try and gain some if possible. But you know, just see how it goes essentially, because I know I got pace here, but starting at the back, it's, well, in the pits, even further than starting at the back. There's a couple of second gap before you even get out there. Made it a very, very challenging evening, but you know, overall a success.
Well, an extremely challenging evening, but a successful one at that. And we did hear from you in the build-up during qualifying to say that starting from the back was always going to make it extremely difficult in trying to find ways to pass, but you definitely found ways to make overtakes. What was the secret to it?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I just be decisive and make the move when you can. I mean, in the first race, that was kind of difficult. The back guys were really giving me hell, trying to keep me behind, and I don't know why, but you know, I guess, you know, it's racing and everyone likes racing. That was kind of difficult, and then once I kind of got past a few of them, Wayne Douglas ended up somehow at the back with me. So I was like, I know Wayne's kind of aggressive. I can't really afford any penalties, so let's let Wayne pass, and we'll just follow him through the gaps that he makes. And I kind of worked, to be honest, in race one. It really did work. For the rest of the races, for the overtaking, it was just, you know, see if you can spot where anybody's even slightly weak or leaves a gap at all, and just put it in there, and, you know, just make sure that you don't make contact. And yeah, I don't really know. It's a bit of a blur, if I'm honest, Paul.
Oh, fair play, fair play. You've had to work extremely hard today. Well, it may be all a blur, but we talked earlier on about races 1 and 2, so perhaps we park that and perhaps talk a little bit more about then the reverse grid draw going from race 2 to 3, because you'd ended up 14th at the end of race 2, an absolutely brilliant achievement, 5th in the Pro-Am class, and then suddenly you hear it's a top 15 reverse grid. How was that?
I mean, it felt pretty good, knowing that I was going to be starting on the front row, and knowing the pace that I got, I knew that I would probably be finishing in one of the top Pro-Am places. I didn't think it'd go quite as well as it did until about lap 3 or 4, and I thought, I might have this.
Well, you definitely had an absolutely brilliant start. Took the lead off of Alan McCain into the opening corner. And as the opening couple of laps went on, like you say, you started to just create a bit of a gap for yourself. We noticed about 10 laps in, that gap started to be about 2-3 seconds as McCain and Greedy started fighting each other. I get the feeling at that point you're sort of looking in your mirrors and thinking, go on, lads, keep on fighting. Don't worry. I'm not running away with the win or anything.
Well, yeah, I mean, I started to make a bit of gap anyway, just on pace, and then I made a couple of mistakes coming into the turn at the end of the back straight, and lost all that advantage again, and then just slowly was eking it out, and then, yeah, I didn't know that they were fighting at the time. I was just trying to focus on my lines and make sure I wasn't making any mistakes, and then, like you say, when we got to about lap 10, and it was about 2 seconds-ish, I thought, okay, I've got the pace on him. If I can just keep this up, and I noticed Isaac in 4th place wasn't really gaining on me. It was, the time was staying about the same, and that was the one I was focused on more, because I was like, okay, Isaac's, if anything, he's the one that's going to catch me up. And it just sort of stayed the same, and I thought, okay, if you just keep calm, keep hitting your braking markers, keep, on your line, you've got this. And I just kept telling myself that to try and keep myself sort of calm and keep everything flowing as it should. And yeah, just brought it home. Like, I genuinely can't believe that I started in the pits on race 1 and I won the last race. It's crazy.
Oh, it did. It is a crazy turn of events, but sometimes the magic happens and it can lead to great things. Speaking of great things, you're going to need a great haul of points at Brands Hatch if you want to try and steal away the Pram Championship crown from Ben Trier. So what can we expect from you there?
Well, I mean, hopefully I've got no penalties going into it. So I like Brands. I have my first overall win was at Brands. It was on a race 3 again. All of them have been race 3s, but my first overall win was there. I do like Brands. So if I can, I mean, essentially it's qualify really well is priority number 1. Qualify as best as I can. If I can qualify somewhere near the front, then all I can do is just try and consistently finish really high and just hope that Ben has a mare, essentially. Just hope he has a really bad time of it. Not that I will, wish any ill will on people, but when it comes to the championship, that's the only way that I'm going to be able to win it. So yeah, I'm going to have to just focus up, qualify well, try and win all 3 races. Don't know if that's possible, but we'll find out. And yeah, and just hope that Ben scores, 1 less point than what he needs to win it.
Well, a bit of hope and luck will need to be on your side, like you say, but all you can do is what you can to try and score as many points as possible. And we look forward to seeing you attempt to do that 2 weeks from now. But Michael, just as we get ready to leave you, is anyone you want to give a shout out or a thank you to tonight?
Just yourself, Paul. Just yourself for always putting on a good show. It's always nice to watch back, and I'm going to enjoy watching myself win one later tonight with you commentating on it. And yeah, the organisers, Jamie, Mark, Gaz, Gavin, all of the NXTGEN boys, Lee, who put on this this series and keep it, up there, being one of the best touring car leagues out there.
Well, Michael, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room. Thank you for volunteering this evening. A great end to what has been a challenging round for you, no doubt about it. And indeed, I don't think anybody could predict that you'd go from a pit lane start in race number 1 all the way through to an overall win in race number 3. But that's the way it goes in the NXTCC. And well, with that, my friend, well done once again. And we look forward to seeing you at Brands Hatch in 2 weeks' time.
Thanks, Paul. I have to go and pop the champagne, I think.
Go for it.
See ya.
So hearing there from a very happy Michael Lees, but also quite an exhausted one at that. You can hear it in his voice in the fact I think it really has been a draining evening. And it's understandable as to why. A lot of it will be a blur, all the batting he's had to go through. And remember, not being allowed to qualify in itself, there's a huge amount of frustration in the fact that he sat there knowing that when he's second in the Pram Championship for the Orange Lobby, he's not able to set himself up for success. So he's got to do it all from the back of the field. And race number 1 made a lot of progress, but was stumped by an incident that set him back significantly. And what could have been perhaps a top 20 finish ended up being a 25th place finish. Race number 2, he carried his way forward and dug in, knowing he needed to get himself as far up the order to perhaps benefit from the reverse grid. And he did exactly that. A 14th place finish in race number 2 meant he started second for race number 3. As he said there, took the lead early on and recognised by the midway point of the race, as we see in the replay footage here, there were Benjamin Gregory and Alan McCain fighting each other so intensely for second that he was naturally breaking away and just didn't need to put a foot wrong, and adds another overall win to his run of overall wins that he's had in previous seasons. Indeed, he has picked them up on quite a regular occurrence in terms of Pro-Am overall winners. And for Michael Lease now, he's a long way back versus Ben Altrier, 37 points. It's not impossible, but as he mentioned there, he needs luck to be on his side. He needs Ben to have a nightmare round, and conversely, he needs to have a perfect round. But we have seen drivers overhaul points deltas before of that scale in the NXTCC. Could Michael Lease do it in our season finale? Well, we'll only find out in 2 weeks' time. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we now come to our final interview of the evening, and we go back to the Blue Lobby, where we're going to be hearing from none other than the man who has his own eye set on a Pro-Am crown in the Blue Lobby, and it is going to be Dylan Hunter, who now joins me in the interview room. Well, good evening to you, Dylan, and thank you for your patience in waiting for so long. And goodness me, how long did you have to wait today to be able to secure a class win at Silverstone? I mean, it must have felt as though it was the round that was going against you, much like at Donington Park, and then suddenly some good luck comes your way.
Oh yeah, going into this, this is gonna be a tight race between everyone. I was just hoping for everyone to slow everyone down, and unfortunately, race 1 and 2, I got the short end of the stick. But race 3, I didn't this time.
Oh, 100%. Now, rolling it all the way back to qualifying, we've normally seen you qualify quite well. However, Silverstone has been a bit of a different round this one. Very short circuit, very little differences between lap times, and 33rd from yourself in qualifying. Something tells me things didn't go quite right.
Going into this, I did try to practice this track for a bit. Just couldn't get the pace I needed, but I knew I was going to be consistent. But then going into the race, I know following everyone and watching them battle, slow them down, that's where I can learn more from the track than anything.
Oh, very true. And going into the races, then, of course, it would be a bit of an uphill battle. And keep in mind, your championship rival was not on the grid tonight. In fact, he's been watching, has Mike. You'd find a number of QuakeMS Motorsport cars along your way up through the field, and none of them wanting to give an inch, nor did any other car out there, in fact, even if they're not aware they're battling with a driver who's trying to chase a Pro-Am crown.
Yeah, I did talk to the Quartermass team afterwards, and they admitted that they were going to be trying to slow me down, which, all in good fun. It was fun to get around them on the final race to actually take the win for Pro-Am, but yeah, I mean, I didn't want to take the lead by Mike missing, but hopefully the points are even closer than before.
Oh, 100%. I mean, we always want to see both rivals on the grid together because we never want to see a championship perhaps decided by the absence of a driver. But it is a swing now to 32 points in your favour, but we still need to keep in mind that drop scores have to be accounted for coming out of the finale. So it may not be as far as that. But coming back to the racing here, talking a bit more about race number 2. It went a bit wrong towards the midway point of the race, ended up going around, although something tells me when we looked back at the replay footage earlier on, you just missed the tyre barrier by mere millimetres. Something tells me you might have been quite grateful for that, because it could have been far, far worse.
Oh yeah, it was. I look back at it; it was a racing incident. Nothing, no harm, no foul. But yeah, I was just hoping I wasn't going to hit the barrier and get the meatball. Then I tried to work my way back up as far as I could.
Well, it was a brilliant effort to do so. And just talking a little bit more about race number 3, I mean, fighting your way through to take the class victory and having to pick off drivers left, right, and centre, including, as we look at the footage at the moment, Phil McDougall. I mean, how you've done it and the determination is phenomenal. But were there any particular parts of the circuit where you felt as though, you know what, this is where I'm stronger than everybody else, this is where I can make the magic happen?
Coming into the first and second turns, I did feel the most comfortable. But I think a big help was like not having as much weight on this to get the acceleration coming out of those turns.
Well, a little bit less weight, plus also confidence in the opening couple of corners. Definitely going hand in hand. And it means with the points you picked up today, you do head into the season finale as the class leader. But what can we expect from you at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit?
Well, again, I've never raced that one. While waiting, I was getting a couple laps in just to figure it out, but who knows? It could be another good track for me, or it could just be a not so good day. It all depends, I guess.
Well, you're keeping us guessing, no doubt about it, but we look forward to seeing how well you learn the circuit over the next 2 weeks. But Dylan, just before I do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast today?
Oh yeah, my wife for letting me actually get a little practice in yesterday, even though it was her birthday. And my parents, P1 Sims, Nordy Design, and Adapt Sim Racing.
Well, Dylan, it's been a pleasure having you join me in the interview room this evening. Congratulations on your results, particularly that win in race number 3, a very deserved win at that. We look forward to seeing whether you can bring the crown home in 2 weeks' time at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. But until then, have a great rest of your evening and enjoy practicing our season finale venue.
All right, thank you.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from our final interview of this evening, Dylan Hunter there for Adapt Sim Racing. And, well, sounding absolutely exhausted from all the racing today. And completely understandable, to be fair, given the fact he had to really give it everything. And talking there about enjoying the battling with the QuakeMS Motorsport team drivers. And the fact that they definitely wanted to prove as obstinate as humanly possible, and, well, understandable given the fact they're going to try and do their utmost to make sure that their absent teammate does not lose as many points as possible. And talking a little bit as well there about his, perhaps not disappointment, but not really wanting to win the championship through the absence of his rival. And that goes to show you how honest and gentlemanly the championship battle between Dylan Hunter and Mike Barber has been all season long. And the fact they've enjoyed racing each other on the circuit round after round, and neither one, I suspect, would want the championship to come down to the fact one was not there to fight for it at the very end. But thankfully, whilst the points are swung in the favour of Dylan Hunter, it's not over yet. He's already starting to learn the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit that he's never turned a lap at, and therefore for the Adapt Sim Racing driver, he knows he's got his work cut out for him, as I'm sure his championship rival Mike Barber listening has as well, as both of them head to the season finale, and they need big scores if they want to bring it on home, and also a little bit of fortune on their side, of which for Dylan Hunter, after the bad luck he's had in 5 races back-to-back, he's finally found some good luck and also some perseverance in the final race of the day here at Silverstone. And that could be the difference when this championship curtain comes on down. But with that, that concludes our interviews for this evening, ladies and gentlemen. And a big thank you to all 3 of our interviewees. We heard from Andy Chell for QuakeMS Motorsport first and foremost. Then we heard from Michael Lees for JWM Motorsport. And last but not least, we heard from Dylan Hunter for the Adapt Sim Racing team. Our drivers being across both the blue and orange lobbies there in the AM and Prime classes. And a big thank you to them for spending their time. And well done to them all on their great results and giving us some plentiful entertainment over our races this evening. But with that, we take a look to the Provisional Championship standings then, after 9 rounds, and starting with the focus on the Orange Lobby, the Orange Overall Championship. Mikey Doble's lead has been slashed slightly down to 21 points over Luciano Witvoet. Witvoet gaining some ground, but by no means enough to bring it level. And for Mikey Doble, well, the one thing he can now take in his stride is the fact he does not need to necessarily outpace Witvoet in order to take the championship crown. All he needs to do is finish right behind him. Isaac Doble, well, he holds on to third, getting ahead of Wojciech Swierdowicz by 7 points, with Swierdowicz absent today, but you can imagine he'll be back in 2 weeks' time, and that's going to lead to an interesting fight for third, with Adam Delman also in the mix there, and it's anybody's guess who is going to be the best of the rest. Tom Davidson sits in sixth, not on the grid this evening, so therefore it does mean, much like his teammate for the Sim Racing Collective, Andrew Pike, they fall a little bit further into the clutches of Lee Horn, with Conrad Cooler and Gavin Gardner completing your top 10, only 4 points between them. 14 points further behind, William Guthrie, absent as was Alex Meredith, and then a point behind him, Jamie Dorey, who continues to fight with his Hyundai Elantra, and Ben Altrier and Michael Lease complete those overall standings. As for the Pram class in the orange lobby, Ben Altrier now has slightly increased his lead to the best part there of what is 28 points over his rival Michael Lease, so therefore a small gain, but small gains could mean big prizes when it's all said and done. Michael Lease, meanwhile, be looking at this right now and thinking to himself, you know what, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was, and I might have an opportunity here, if Altria has a difficult day at Brands Hatch, to bring this home. However, it is going to be a two-way fight with Matthew Addy. Mathematically, it's still possible. However, he would need both his rivals to practically score zeros at this point, and for Matthew Addy to have a perfect score. So therefore, keep your eyes out for him, because he'll be keen to try and take second off Lease, but then again, it will come down to any luck if he wants to try and take the crown. Lewis Delmont now mathematically cannot win the championship. However, he is well within attacking distance of Matthew Addy for third place, only 10 points behind, and 3 ahead of Kieran Smart. So the top 5 of the Pram class here is definitely up for question. Nick Lewin sits in 6th, equal in points to his teammate Alan McCain, as they continue to have a bit of an inter-team rivalry between the two drivers there, as well as wanting to chase down 5th place. And it's a further 21 points to Ben Gregory, who had a brilliant performance, particularly in races 2 and 3. Reese Watts sits a point behind, absent on the grid, but back, I'm sure, for Brands Hatch's Grand Prix circuit, ahead of Sam Van Olst, with best rest on length going to Stuart Winus, ahead of Duncan Rye, and Russell Fowler and Sam Smith completing the standings. As for the Orange AM class, well, Marcel Fritsch is crowned provisionally, ladies and gentlemen, your AM champion for Season 9, as he has scored enough points now to make it mathematically impossible for his rivals to take the title back. And well done to Marcel. We will confirm it when we start the broadcast in 2 weeks' time at Brands Hatch, but theoretically at the moment he is provisionally your championship winner. Therefore the question will be, who will be second? Will it be Mark Sykes and Matthew Jordan? All sites point to Mark Sykes, but Matthew Jordan may have a few surprises up his sleeve. Jonathan Collins, Sam Bradley, Craig Tillerson and Cal Murray complete the AM standings. And coming to the blue lobby, meanwhile, well, here we can see it is Matthew Cheverton who leads the way there on 405 points and has stabilised his advantage by increasing it by 2 over Ben Benneyworth, with that result in races 2 and 3 being very important and therefore giving him a little bit more certainty. It's not over yet, however, and if Cheverton has a nightmare day in our season finale, Ben Benneyworth can still steal it back, but you'll need a perfect round, where Cheverton will need the round of nightmares. Slamir Jaworski sits in third, no man's land there, and looks very much set on course for third place, ahead of Mike Barber, who was absent today. Nigel Stock sits in 5th, meanwhile, now 7 points ahead of Dylan Hunter, where Lewis Mason, Peter Jelzewski, Joe Gibson and Phil McDougall completing your top 10, and the 4 drivers there separated by only the best part of what is 35 points. It'll be interesting to see who finishes 7th in all of this. Stephen Fry sits 11th down, 183, not on the grid today, but hopefully back on the grid for our finale. He's only a point behind Phil McDougall, so he can still finish inside the top 10, but he's comfortably ahead of Wayne Douglas at this point, with Stanley Donaldson, Andy Aldhouse and Thomas Delaney completing the blue overall top 15. Outside of the overall standings, looking to the Blue Prime Championship, well, as we spoke to Dylan Hunter only moments ago, he mentioned there the fact that he's looking to be leading the championship now, and in the absence of Mike Barber, he has taken a 32-point lead. It is a relatively good margin to have. However, it's not certain he'll take the crown home, but if Mike Barber is absolutely going to dominate proceedings at Brands Hatch, not saying he will, but that will be his target, then he could swing the momentum back, particularly if bad luck strikes Dylan Hunter again. Joe Gibson, meanwhile, well, he can't take the championship crown, but what he can do at this point is he can definitely look to secure third ahead of Phil McDougall, who is the best part of 35 points behind. Andy Aldhouse, with his valiant efforts today, moves into 5th ahead of Carl Thompson and Stanley Donaldson, but that fight for 5th, where it's only 30 points separating the trio, and it's anybody's guess who's going to be at the bottom end of that top 5 when all is said and done. Meanwhile, not on the grid today, Matt Williams ahead of Dwayne Hoffman and Jeremy Nordstrom complete the top 10, with Jeffrey Nordstrom, Andy Cow, Jake Pitt and Lee Holmes rounding off your Blue Pram standings. And coming to the Blue AM Championship, Nigel Stock now stands 47 points ahead of Lewis Mason. It's not quite over, Lewis Mason can still do it. However, he will need Nigel Stock to have a nightmare day. With 3 wins back-to-back at Silverstone today, you would imagine that Nigel Stock will feel as though all he needs is one good result at Brands Hatch, and it is all wrapped up. Therefore, for Lewis Mason, it will be nothing to lose next time out, whereas for Thomas Delaney, he falls closer to Sean Doble and Andy Chell as the fight for third still needs to be decided. Mark Hughes as well, unfortunately won't be gaining any more points this season, but he sits in 6th and comes to be ahead of William Kurtler, so he will finish 6th at the end of the season, with Mark Kent, Roy Plummer, Stuart Johnson, Gabriel Yilmaz and Jordan Hogan round off your AM Championship standings. With that, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about the Next Gen racing community in terms of what we get up to, our series and everything in between, we do recommend you check out our official website, and that is at nextgenracing.co.uk. And as our website appears on screen now, where it is the home of clean and fair sim racing for all, and well, there's never been a better time to be on the grid at Next Gen Racing as we continue our way through what is our 17th year of sim racing series, and we'd love to have you on the grid, whether you are an esports veteran all the way through to a rookie. And you'll find out all about our series and how to join the beating heart of the Next Gen Racing community, which is the official Discord, all on our website. But if you don't want to go to our website, perhaps you're more of a social media person, you can of course follow us on Facebook, and that's at facebook.com/groups/Next Gen Racing. There you can find out a little bit more about the guys and girls who make up the staff and admin team for Next Gen Racing, including what they do both on the real life circuit as well on the virtual circuit, with a good number of our staff members being track marshals, officials, if not real life racing drivers. I'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our sponsors, without whom this would not be possible, including PowerMax, Next Level Racing, Mark Sykes Designs, Joyce Design, Douglas Motorsport, Sam Cases UK, Falconer BC Fields and Support, Benji Sim Photos, and last but most importantly, Doble Motorcycles. And if you are looking to purchase your next two-wheel machine or ATV, why not consider the leading Honda motorcycle dealer of the United Kingdom, that is Doble Motorcycles, because having won numerous awards over the years, including 3 Motorcycle News Dealer of the Year awards, well, the Doble family-run business prides itself on customer service, and it most definitely shows. And if you'd like to know more and try to get your hands on the machine of dreams, well, do head to their website, that is doble.co.uk, for further information. Again, that web address, doble.co.uk. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we turn our attentions then to our season finale, and save the date, because on Tuesday the 30th of September 2025, we'll be heading back to Brands Hatch for its Grand Prix circuit, and with it our season finale to see out what is our 9th rendition of the NXTCC. And whilst one of our championships has been wrapped up in the form of the Orange AM Championship, we've still got 5 Drivers' Championships and a Teams Championship to conclude, and nothing is set in stone currently. It is going to be a finale not to be missed, so you'll have to be there to see how it all plays out live. But with that, we've been Next Gen Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, much like our drivers, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay on track. Good night. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, that's all from us here at Next Gen Racing, the home of clean and fair sim racing for all.